Here we go, back on the Gill Athletics Connection podcast. So cool. Just get a kick every time that you guys and gals press play every single week. And really now every single day, as we've added from Tuesday through Sunday, the Gill 1918 Project, 10-minute to 30-minute episodes, talking about kind of the TED Talks of Track and Field podcast, right? So X's and O's, culture, recruiting. We've had a bunch of great topics and a bunch of great people contributing to that. And I'm really, really grateful for that. And today, it's Monday, so it is our long form, man. It's the OG, the Gill Connections podcast that started it all, and I'm pumped for this one, man. This guy, he has been begging, not gonna. I mean, it's a little embarrassing actually, but I'm glad he's here. And of course, I'm kidding on all fronts. There, help me welcome the head coach, the interim head coach, because we're going to talk about that from Lenoir-Rhyne, the wise, the wonderful Mr. Paris Vaughan. Paris, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Oh man, every time someone asks me that question, the first thing I tell them is like, I do this for a living, so I'm doing pretty good, my friend, pretty good. There's not a bad day in old Mike Cunningham's life, let me tell you that. Okay, I always have like initial like 2 to 3 questions before we actually hop into your actual journey, which I'm super excited to learn. My first question is, okay, Lenoir-Rhyne. I always like to know people's mascots. And I should know because I tell you what, I have been blessed to go to the D2 national championship meets for the last couple of years. And I have seen plenty of Lenoir-Rhyne kids and plenty of Lenoir-Rhyne kids winning. So I should know the mascot, but I don't. And I can't even, I don't know. I'm going to guess like something pretty common in the sense of like a wildcat or something. What is it? I'm not close as a wildcat, I don't think.
No, you're not close at all.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you somewhat, but not a cat. So we're the Bears. So Lenore
Bears.
Bears.
I was gonna go with some kind of like falcon, like fast, because I was just thinking that like your kids are always fast. So I was like, oh, maybe it's like some kind of like hunting falcon or something. The Bears. You are in North Carolina, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so there are bears in North Carolina. So that tracks.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it always cracks me up when someone has a mascot and it's like there's no bears in wherever they are, like
Right.
Florida. Like what? There's probably bears in Florida. I don't know. Okay, my next question, I just immediately have to have an answer to. Your name is Paris Vaughan. I love that because I love unique names. There are enough Mikes, Daves, and Steves in the world, right? Where does like how did you get named Paris, man? I love this.
Well, I always ask my mom that question, and she always laughs and doesn't want to answer the question.
Uh-oh.
So it's like I think like, did you think I was a girl at first? But I'm not the child that she thought was a girl. My older brother is the child that she thought was a girl. But I think she just wanted to go to Paris. Like that was her dream
Yeah.
place that she wanted to go, and she's never been. So I mean, my dad wasn't able to name me, so she took that and said, and my dad wanted to name me something totally different, but yeah, she just said, "Hey, I'm gonna name him Paris," and he was like, "Okay, cool."
Maybe, maybe she wants to tell the story that you were conceived in Paris, France, but actually you were conceived in like Paris, Texas, or there's a Paris, Illinois, and it's just not, it's all spelled the same, but I'm not sure Paris, Illinois, and
Mhm.
Paris, France all kind of tracks the
Right.
same there. Yeah, yeah. Well, I love it, man. Like I said, I love. We just had one of our teammates here who oversees our volleyball. Literally Friday night, just had a little baby girl named Etta Faith, Etta Faith, and I was like, I love that. Like that's so cool,
Yeah.
man. That's my wife's name is Amy. I love you, Amy, but there's like a million Amy's, right? But something tells me there's only gonna be one Etta in school when she's growing up. I bet you had to be the only Paris.
Funny enough,
No
when I was in
way.
high school, there's five of us.
No, shut
Four.
up. No
There's
way.
four of us. So and we're still close to today.
Four
So funny enough,
in high school, there were 3 other dudes named Paris.
there were two other dudes named Paris, and there was a girl named Paris, and
Okay,
there
yeah,
was
yeah.
somebody whose locker was right behind mine, and her name was Karis with a K.
I, like I'm trying to think. I don't think I've ever met. Yeah, I'm nearly 50, I'm 48 something, right? I don't think I've ever met a Paris before. And you had 3 in your high school. Did you go to like some mega high school or like 4,000 people in your graduating class or something?
Yeah, I think we were close to 1,000,
Oh,
but
that's
we
big. Yeah,
weren't.
yeah.
Yeah, it was a big school, but yeah, it wasn't. It was weird, whenever I found out, everybody else, the other people who's named Paris. I mean, there was me, there was a guy that played basketball, there was a guy that he's into fashion. And the girl, she was a cheerleader. I ran track and played football, and then
Yeah.
Karis, the one whose locker was behind mine, she cheered. So it was very weird, but we always said our sport and our name
Yeah.
whenever.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Track pair. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That makes. Yeah, you had to.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. I can't. when I meet another Mike, there's like some kind of weird instant, connection. And, I meet a lot of Mikes, obviously, right? I can't imagine two Parises meeting, and then a third one, and then I mean, that's in high school, not like, oh, my whole life I've met three other
Right.
people, in high school. That's cool, man. Well, I love that. That's
I
very cool.
didn't even mention in college my RA. His name was Paris.
Shut up. Now you got me
Yeah,
thinking, like, do I actually know other Parises? And I'm not thinking right. I honestly, I don't. Like the only other Paris I can even think of like to name would be like Paris Hilton, right? That's the
yeah.
only I cannot think of a single. Like was there? I'm trying to think like there had to be like a famous NBA or football player, and I can't think of
Not that
anybody.
I can remember. No.
Yeah, that's crazy, dude. Uh, I'll probably meet another Mike before I, go home here in a couple of hours. Like
Right.
they're just Mikes are so common. So everywhere. Thanks, Mom. You can name me something cool, man. Like Etta. That's cool. That's cool. All right, man. Well, we kind of started getting into it there a little bit. Let's go ahead and officially get into it. Let's hear your journey. Paris, not assuming, you already told us, spoiler alert, you were a track athlete. So my first question is kind of the same for everybody. Where does track and field start for you? Where does that begin?
So, I mean, all my life, my dad was the track guy. He went to Miami, Ohio. I am not going to try to say what year he graduated, but I know it was a while ago. It was a long, long time ago. But he went to Miami, Ohio. He's from Virginia. He never talked to any of us, like my siblings, about track. That was never something he brought up. It was always football, basketball, and that was really it. We didn't talk about baseball. We didn't talk about soccer. It was just really what you kind of grew up into, and football and basketball was what we did. I want to say it was middle school that I got into track. My little sister was doing it. And, somebody mentioned, like, oh, yeah, you're fast. You should run track. I was like, I don't even know what that is. You were not going to see me just run for fun, and I was playing basketball at the time. So that was the big thing. And then my older brother was running in high school. So I was like, I'm not going to let them just like one up me and do, he played football, basketball, and run track, and I'm just playing football and basketball. I'm going to get out there and do it too. So I got out, I think I was in seventh, eighth grade, one of the two. I forget exactly which one. But, while I'm out there, I wanted to be a sprinter. My coaches did not put me into sprints. They actually, and I will forever say this is distance, even though it's really, mid distance and somewhat of a long sprint. I ran the 8 and the 15. Those are the events that I was put into. I ran for a track club called New Wave Track Club in Maryland. And when I got out there, I'm just thinking, oh, I'm gonna be a sprinter. I'm gonna be a sprinter. And then they just had me running long times. I'm like, why am I doing this?
But you stuck with it because it's one thing, like you go out and say, hey, I'm going to sprint because I don't want to run long distance.
Mm-hmm.
They say, yeah, you're going to run at least 2 laps and you're going to run 4 laps. You could have quit. I mean, you were playing other sports. What made you kind of still stick with it?
So ever since I've been in sports, like my sister's father, so I just call him my uncle, he always told us, like the boys, like, hey, we're not going to quit any sports or anything. We're like, we start something, we're going to finish it. Mm-hmm. So I was like, all right, cool. If I'm starting it, I'm going to finish it. My dad didn't care. He was like, if you don't want to do it no more, you ain't got to.
And he was the track guy.
And he was a track guy.
Interesting. Okay.
So the thing that my dad was the track guy. Mm-hmm. Nobody else in my family, I mean, outside of my little sister, my older brother, right, were into track. But my dad was like, if you don't want to do it, you don't have to. So I'm doing this thing and I'm like, I'm tired of this, just like from Holes, like, I'm tired of this, Grandpa. Yeah, I was saying that. I was like, oh, I'm tired of this. I don't want to do this all the time. And then it just, I just kind of grew into it. I think my very first year, I actually qualified for USATF Nationals in Nebraska, Omaha, Nebraska, in the 1500.
Dude.
I don't know how. I don't know why, but I qualified for the 1500. And then I kind of started to like it a little bit more. I met a lot of people, and I was like, oh, cool. But, my personality, growing up, and I mean, I guess kind of still today, I'm a extroverted introvert. So like I can talk to people, but I'm okay with being by myself. Yeah. And that was how I was on track, within track. I met a lot of people and I was like, all right, I can talk to y'all. But at the end of the day, I don't have to see you ever again, and I'm okay with it.
That's interesting. We actually have, after 300 episodes, I still don't think we brought up every topic, but I do remember we have talked about this before. This was kind of a revelation for me. So my wife would, very similar to what you just expressed there, she would call
Mhm.
me the most extroverted introvert she's ever met. Because same thing, like, and you've seen me like at convention and
Yeah.
meets, like, I'm all about the people, right?
Mhm.
But I very much can just be in my house and not see anybody for the weekend. I'm good with that,
Right.
right? And I was reading a book, and I really wish I could remember what book it was, because it always, I kind of struggled with that a little bit, because it was like, oh, I am extroverted, so why am I not always extroverted?
Mhm.
Why, like, it almost was like introversion was a shame, like, oh,
Right.
I can't be introverted. I'm the podcast guy, I'm the social
Right.
media guy, and so I was reading this book, and it brought up a term new to me, I'm sure it's been around forever, called ambivert, AMBI vert. And what it
Mhm.
is that, and this was kind of, I don't want to say life changing, but startling, that many things in life, including this, are not light switches which are on or off. Like, oh, you're extroverted, oh, you're introverted. It's actually kind of like that slider,
Yeah.
light, right? And so a lot of people, most people are not extreme extroverts or extreme introverts. They're somewhere on that scale. And so, you can think about like 50%, you'd be 50% extroverted, 50% introverted. So it just really kind of shaped my thinking about things, like, oh, okay, like, yeah, I see why, like, there are times where absolutely I'm the work in the crowd guy, and then there are other times where I'm like, man, it's 9 o'clock, y'all have fun with the rest of the social, I'm going
Mhm.
back to the hotel room, I'll see y'all tomorrow at the track meet or something, so it really so it was interesting that you could kind of see that in yourself at an early age. I didn't learn that until like probably 8 years ago. I was 40 years old, so that's interesting, you kind of had that self-awareness that early.
Yeah. And it's just something like, I mean, I guess because I don't know, whenever I talk to my dad about it, because my dad's similar,
Mm.
um, he can talk to whoever, but he's also not he can sit by himself. Like I used to see it all the time growing up. If he's in the house, he's in the house, he's chilling,
Hmm. Hmm.
and I'd be like, you ain't going with your friends? He's like, I'll see him later,
Hmm.
and that was just him. And I mean, I've grown up to be the same exact way.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, you know, just running. I mean, after making that nationals, um, I looked at it and I was like, this is cool, So that actually was seventh grade. So eighth
Mhm.
grade year, I was doing it again, doing it some more. But I also at the same time, I was like, I don't, I want to do something less. I don't want to keep doing this 800 and 1500, and then my coaches looked at me and was like, well, you can try something else. There's two things that you can try.
Oh.
And the two things that they told me was one was steeplechase and the other was hurdles.
Well,
So me looking at steeplechase, I was like, that looks fun. And then they told me how long it was. And I
yeah,
said, gotcha. You almost got me.
yeah.
So I'm going to do the shorter thing. So
So they
um
were talking about club summer
yeah,
track
summer
then.
track.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
was gonna say, because
Summer track.
I only know of one state that has steeple for high school, and that's
Mhm.
New York. And you didn't grow up in New York, so
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. 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 Okay.
So yeah, this is all summer track.
Okay. So you're still doing so eighth grade, as we start going into high school, you're still doing football, basketball, and
Mhm.
track and summer track.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
well,
Okay.
my middle school didn't have a track team.
Okay.
So in Maryland, the thing about Maryland, they don't have high school, I mean, not high school, they don't have middle school football and middle school track. We have
Okay.
baseball, soccer, softball,
Yep.
basketball. I think that's it.
All right. That makes
But
sense.
that's also in the public too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, all summer track, I'm, doing that and then, turn around and it's like, I would choose the hurdles. So
Yeah.
200 hurdles is actually what I did. Now I love the 200
Oh,
hurdles.
that's cool.
I didn't do the short hurdles. I did, well,
Yeah.
the high hurdles, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Didn't do those. I- Personally, I just sell it. My foot speed's not there. I could run fast, but it take me a little bit to pick it up. So, it was the 200 hurdles. I was doing that
Hmm.
consistently. Um, and then, get to high school and, my brother had just graduated probably a year
Hmm.
before I got there, or 2 years before I got there. And his high school coach actually had watched me as I was running summer track,
Hmm.
for the years. He was watching me while I was running. Um, and he was like, I'm going to try you in some different things. So he put me in 400. I went to 300 hurdles, did the 110 hurdles. And then I think also that year I might have jumped into doing like looking at doing just other things. And I ended up doing a multi going that summer. So through the high
Nice.
school season, my freshman year, I did a bunch of events. And I was just a freshman. I was probably 130 pounds going into high school. I was probably 5'7", 130 pounds. And I was still on the football team, but I was 5'7", 130 pounds. So
Right.
I played receiver and I played safety. And I was like, I'm going to stick with football because that was what I loved. And track was just kind of what I did. So I was doing both. And then something with my track coach, he was like, and he was a football coach too. So he coached our, I think he was the defensive coordinator for varsity. He was like, Paris, you get in the weight room this summer, you'll be all right. You might shape out to be something, something special. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, are you talking about me like in a bad way? And he was like, no, like this is a positive thing. Like just get in the weight room a little bit, it's going to help for both football and, and
Right.
track. And I was like, well, I don't know how much I'm gonna get in the weight room because as soon as the school year's over, I'm back in the track. And he was like, that's fine. So going to track, summer track. I had changed the track club that I ran for. So I ran with this one club, like I said, that was a new wave. And I don't know what she was to the club, but she had left. Coach Gwen. Yeah, I never forget Coach Gwen because she's the one that kind of got me going.
Mm.
She started a new club. And she wanted my dad to help her start it. So, I mean, a lot of people would say like, oh, my parents coaching me. I don't know how to handle it.
Right.
My dad was the one that said, I am not going to coach you. I'm going to coach the kids. I'm just going to be your parent. I'm going to be your dad. I'm not going to try to coach you. So that summer he was like, you want to do this combined event stuff, then let's do it. So I was doing the pentathlon,
Nice.
and pentathlon was going well for me. I made nationals a couple years with that. And I was loving it because I was like, this is something nice. It's different and it's
Mm.
nice because I get to do a lot. I'm
Yeah.
doing a lot of things, and I don't have ADHD or anything. At least I haven't been diagnosed with it. But I'm somebody that always has to do a lot of different things.
Yeah.
I'd rather do a lot than do a little and then sit there thinking and bored the rest of the day.
Yeah.
So me doing the pentathlon, I was excited about it. I get to run back and forth, do different things. And then also I just learned other events too. So
Mhm.
I think going into my sophomore year, I might have learned pole vault.
Mm.
So yeah, I had to learn pole vault then because I was pole vaulting for the rest of my high school, career. And it was
Wow.
just a way to get points.
Yeah.
um, so yeah, after that, going pole vaulting and everything. So I kind of just did everything. Me
Yeah.
doing the multi, I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this.
Right.
High school, we didn't have it as an event.
Right.
So my coach do, all right, I'm gonna put you in pole vault, I'm gonna put you in 110 hurdles, I'm gonna put you in 300 hurdles, I'll put you in the 4x4 because you only got 4 events.
Did I like how you talked about the combined events about like you get to do a lot of different things. And I think a lot of kids would be more attracted to that. They're just not given the opportunity to even know
Mhm.
that it's an event, right? I mean, to your
Right.
point, they're used to just doing 4 events. And they don't know that like, hey, there's actually events where you can do one more and it's all one event,
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. But did you like you had to be unique in your high school setting. Like when you went to other meets, like you had to be the only dude like going from the pole vault to the hurdles to the not many people are doing that in high school. Like maybe the guy's doing the hurdles in the 4x1 and the 4x4, but no one's throwing a long or a pole vault in there or anything like that.
Yeah, and that was the funniest part about it is, in PG County, Maryland, it is I would say at one point in time, when I was in high school, it was the richest black county in America.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, there was nobody doing pole vault,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
everybody was African American. So there was
Mm-hmm.
nobody doing pole vault.
Right.
And it was just myself and actually my coach's cousin, his little cousin, did pole vault. So he was somebody that did pole vault because that was all he did.
Right.
Pole vaulter through and through. He went to Howard, pole vaulted for Howard.
Yeah. Wow.
Me, I did pole vault because hey, I do the multis in the summer.
Right.
So it would just be me and him pole vaulting, and then when we get to regionals, it's me and him. Then we go to states. Now it's like, hey, I'm here. I got here somehow, some way. If I can place, I place. If I don't, I don't. It is what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
I never practiced it. It was one of those events that My coach knew nothing about it.
Right.
He couldn't coach me up in it. But we did have another coach at the school that tried to help me out a little bit, because we did have another guy that transferred to our high school from another county. He was a pole vaulter, but he did the pole vault and hurdles. So you had two guys on the team that did pole vault
Yeah.
and hurdles. And then they kind of took him away from hurdles just because
Mm.
it's like, we'll just stick you to pole vault because that's your better event. You know, it's like Paris got better than you in the hurdles, so we're gonna let him stay doing that. And you know, our pole vault coach, I would air quote it a little bit because
Sure.
he was a volleyball coach, you know,
Yeah.
and he just came out, he knew about track. You know, he came out and helped us out, Coach Alexander. And he just kind of got us through it. You know, we probably practice, well, I practice once a week.
Hmm.
A teammate practiced probably 2 or 3 times because that's all he did. But it was tough doing it because, you know, my coach, the head coach, Coach Carter, Coach Fardon Carter, what he wanted us to do was, hey, we're going to focus on running, you know?
Right.
And funny enough, that's what he does. That's what he did for me is, hey, I want to focus on running. Every one of my pole vaulters, I tell them, hey, we're going to focus on running. We're going to
Yeah.
focus on you know, but going through that, it was amazing because I was able to see everything. I was able to do a bunch of different things,
That's cool.
and just really enjoy it.
So did you play football, basketball, and track all through high school, or did
No,
any sport drop off?
basketball kind of it
That
died
dropped
away.
early. Yep. Mhm.
That died away because I did not get any taller. So my brother, he's a basketball player. I think he's probably 2 inches taller than me, maybe. I'm 5'10" and 3/4" right now. He's probably, he's not even that much taller than me. He's 5'11". You know,
Yeah.
he's 5'11". But he was more skilled at basketball,
Mhm.
you know. So he was the one that focused on basketball only and did football and did track.
Right.
He focused on basketball.
So you were football and the track guy.
Yeah.
Did you? I always ask this of every dual athlete that we have on the podcast. Would you, as you're looking into your senior year, would you have considered yourself a track guy who plays football or a football guy who runs track?
My senior year, I considered myself a track guy that played
Yeah.
football.
But before
So
that, maybe the
before
opposite?
that, it was the
Yeah.
opposite.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before that was the total opposite.
So what happened senior year, whether it was at the beginning or at the end? What happened? Because that's really important, right? That's identity, right? That's who,
Mhm.
when you introduce yourself in high school, he's like, oh yeah, I play football. Oh yeah, I do track too. That's the football guy who runs
Mhm.
track. Or your senior year, you probably was like, oh yeah, I run track, and yeah, I played football. Like that's the track guy who plays football. What
Yeah.
happened senior year that turned your identity there?
So it was actually junior year. So I started getting interest letters, and I
Mm.
say nothing was for football. So nothing was for football. Crazy enough, in high school, I was the backup safety to Marcus Allen. He went to Penn State.
Okay,
He played for the Steelers. So
dude.
I mean, for me, being his backup, I was okay. You know, I was like, hey, you know, me and Marcus came in the same year. You know, he got bigger
Yeah.
and stronger. I kind of stayed the same.
Someone had
I
to be
was
his
up to my
backup. I mean, you had
speed.
to be an NFLer to beat him. So, I mean, come on. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, hey, it is what it is. And I rarely focused on the offensive side of the ball, even though I like playing receiver.
Mhm.
I just didn't focus on it that much, you
Mhm.
know, leading up to my senior year. I wasn't focusing on it. But
There's a term, and you've heard this term before, and it's a business consumer term that
mhm,
the customer is always right, and what it
right.
really what it's been perverted to is that if you Paris come to me and say, hey Mike, you should sell me that pole vault pit for a cent because I'm the customer and I'm always right. That's what it's been perverted to. What it
Mhm,
actually is that the market is always right, and what that means is like if you sell a product and no one's buying it, the market's
yeah.
telling you that it's not. So
Mhm.
the market that was right. They're like, yeah, Paris, you play football. No one's buying it though. But the track coaches are like, okay, I can buy it. You know what I'm saying? The market showed you your path,
Mhm.
if you will. Yeah. So
Yeah, and
how'd that feel getting, interest and letters and recruitment on the track side?
it actually felt great. I mean, I was just sitting there because like to be honest with you, I was a guy that I didn't really care too much about school. You
Mhm.
know, I try to tell people this all the time. I mean, I tell my recruits, because they want me to be honest. I'm like, I'm gonna be honest with you, you know, but I tell my athletes whenever they graduate, I'm like, like we just had graduation Friday.
Mm,
And I told him, I was like, I'm proud of y'all for graduating. Because a lot of y'all probably had the same mindset I did coming out of high school. I just don't want to go to college.
sure.
It's more for the guys, not much of the girls, but for the guys, they're probably saying the same thing. But that was really what it was. I didn't care too much about school.
Mhm.
But then when I started getting those letters, I was like, oh, wait a second.
Did you have family that went to college?
Yeah. So my dad is the one that hmm,
Oh yeah, you said
I'm
you
the
went to Miami
first
High.
child.
Yeah.
I'm the first child to graduate from college.
Okay.
So my older sister, she went to community college. I don't know if she got her associates.
Okay.
My older brother went to college. He did not get his associates.
Sure, sure. Okay.
And then my younger siblings, my little sister went, but she said school's not for her. My little brother
Yeah,
was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I know school's not for me.
So there's not like it's not like none of my family went to college and I was the first
Mhm.
one who would go on. Like there's some like, oh, okay, we at least try college. It might
Yeah.
not work out. It doesn't work out for everybody. Nothing
Mhm.
works out for everybody. But it's like, oh yeah, yeah, my dad went to college, my brother and sister. Like so there's some
Yeah.
like there, so when you're getting these letters, it's not like you're not getting them and going, yeah, whatever, dude. I don't go to what are you talking about? We go to
Mhm.
we go to I'm trying to think I almost said the steel mill, but I don't think there's steel mills in Maryland. But like we go work. That's what we do in
Yeah.
my family. So there is a little bit like, oh, okay, cool. Like maybe these are the colleges I go try out.
Yeah, so like my dad, he was looking at everything I was getting. He was like, "Hey man, this is nice, he's nudging me like, you want to think
Yeah.
about school now?" And I was
Good,
like,
good, good. Being
"Nah,
supportive.
man." I was like, I guess I could start looking. So I started looking into schools, and then I
Mhm.
told him I told my dad this, and I had to tell him first before I told my mom because moms, mom's always right. I'll just put it that way. I'll just
Yeah,
leave it at
that
that.
that is
Mom's
true.
always right. So my dad, he was like, man, I don't want to be in Maryland. I was like, I just don't want to be here. Like, I don't want to be in the state. He's like, what do you mean? I said, I'm here like all my life, but because of track, I've been able to travel and I like being every other places.
Oh, good point.
So,
Yeah,
so
you've
he
been to
was like,
Omaha and all these other national.
mhm.
Yeah, I love that.
So
That's
he's
cool.
he's talking to me. He's like, so like, where do you want to go? I said, I don't know. And then that's when he mentioned to me, oh, I went to, Miami, Ohio, so he
Mm,
mentioned it to me. I was like, huh, what is that? So I
that's
looked up Miami
interesting. Yeah.
and the U
The
popped up
U.
and I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
you didn't go here. He was like, no, no, no. I went to Miami University of Ohio.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, what was that? I said,
Yeah.
is that like a small school?
All right.
And he was like, no, it's a big school. And then he looked it up for me and then
Yeah.
showed me. And I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Then this is where he started to gloat a little bit, but he tried to be very humble but gloat. He was like, yeah, man, I was pretty decent up there. I said, what do you mean? Like, yeah, I think I'm still in the record books in the 400 hurdles. And I was like, no, you're not.
Oh, wait a
You're
minute.
not. Say you're not fast. He was like, look it up. So I'm looking, I can't find anything. And he actually went to work because so my dad was a cop. He's a DC
Okay.
police officer.
Oh, wow.
He went to work and he printed out the records. And then he brought it to me one day and just handed it to me and walked away. Closed his door and locked it. He didn't want to say anything else. He just gave it to me and walked away. So I'm looking, I'm like, what in the world is this? So I'm looking, I see the 100, I see the 200. I go all the way down, I see the hurdles. I see the 110 hurdles. I'm like, I don't see a name on here. And I see the 400 hurdles. I was like, oh, you were fast. So I think he ran 51:51.
Dude.
I don't know. I forget what year it was, but he's number
Yeah.
two all time, and he is still to this day number two all time in Miami
Wow. Holy cow.
on the hurdle history.
Yeah. Hey, 51 is nothing to sneeze at. You know that as a
Yeah,
as a coach. Like, I'll take a 51 second guy all
exactly.
day.
So
That it's
I
interesting. You're telling a story and I'm kind of visualizing it. And, I just kind of think about like one of the things I try to do, and I feel like I do a pretty good job is put myself in other people's shoes. And I'm
mhm,
there thinking, it's like, yeah, how do we talk to our children? I have an eighth grade, it's almost going to be in high
yeah,
school next year. How do we, like, there's some things I do sometimes, like just assume he knows. And then
mhm,
when he doesn't, and I really think about, it, I'm like, oh yeah, how would he know? Even though he has,
yeah,
every piece of information in his hand, right? He's got his phone and you had the ability to look those things up. You're not that old that, you didn't have internet as you're growing up here in high
mhm,
school. But why would you know what the University of Miami, Ohio would be as a junior or whatever in high school? Like, unless dad was like, hey, so I went to school. I'm a Red Hawk, I think they are.
yep,
Like, how would it's just interesting. Like, the lenses that we see things through. And it's
Mhm.
like, well, why don't you know that, Paris? And it's like, why would I know that, Dad? Like,
Right.
unless you tell me, how in the world am I supposed to know this school in Oxford, Ohio? There's a
Hmm.
lot of schools, Dad. Come on now.
Yeah.
It's just really interesting.
So he like when I saw that, I started to really like look into that school. So I started to look at Miami, Ohio a little bit more. And I was like, I don't want to be, and me being from Maryland, I didn't think about weather because I was like, oh, we get snow.
Yeah.
It's cold. We get snow. It is what it is.
Right.
Ohio, I've never been. Whatever. I can go. It'll be the same as here. So it'll be the
Yeah.
same as home, except it's not the same as home.
Yeah. It's
So,
colder.
so we're doing, things, and I was going on my college recruiting trips in the
Okay.
summer.
Okay.
Not summer, going to my senior year, I was
Yeah.
going on trips.
And
Miami,
pause
Ohio.
and pause there real quick. What are you as a 17-ish year old kid who's going into senior year? You're starting to look at school. You're actually kind of looking at schools a little early, even, which is crazy.
Mhm.
It's crazy to think, senior year going to high school is early, but some people don't think about this
Yeah,
stuff till March or April, right?
right.
What are you where is your mind as far as like, oh, I'm going to become, my dad's a cop, I'm going to go study criminal justice, or I'm going to go pre-med? What were you thinking as far as like a major, and therefore like what I might become one day as an adult, as a
So
17-year-old?
shoot, probably when I was 10, I was like, oh, I'll be a police officer.
Oh yeah,
Then
for
I thought
dad,
about it. Yeah, because of my dad. My
of
mom's a
course.
correctional officer.
Oh,
So,
oh yeah, okay,
so I
yeah.
was like, oh, I'd probably go do that. And then as I got a little older, I was like, I don't want to do that. So I don't
Gotcha.
want to do that. I don't want to
Sure.
have to chase after nobody. I don't
Yeah.
want none of that. I want to deal with it. So then it's like sports. I was like, I just like sports.
Hmm.
And I say, if I could do anything to be around sports the rest of my life, I want
Hmm.
to.
Hmm.
And then I think it was my sophomore, junior year in high school, we had these classes. Like I know my senior, we had a college career ready course, but we had something else, and we were talking about it with our teachers, um, and they said, "Yeah, what do you guys want to do for when you go to college?" And I was like, "I mean, if I go to college, I want to do something with sports." And for whatever reason, I was thinking sport medicine.
Yeah.
Now, me not really thinking about sports medicine, and then I did some research on sports medicine. I was like, oh, this has biology. This has science. I want no parts. Me and science we were
Sure.
not friends. Me, science, and math. We were not friends. I was not friends with science or math. And that was from middle school on. I didn't, I tried to stay away from those two.
I hear that.
So I was like, what else can I do that's going to be around sports? So I'm looking it up on the internet, and I see sport management. It's like, what does that have? What is that?
Mhm.
And then, something just said managing sports. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, I guess. And then I
I
looked
I want to
deeper into
manage
it.
sports.
Yeah. I looked deeper into it and I was like, okay, oh, it's more broad than that. It's a lot more stuff into it than just managing sports.
Right,
So
right.
I was like, okay, that's what I want to do.
Okay.
Um,
You weren't, I don't hear that coaching was necessarily,
no, no,
yeah,
no, no,
that's
no.
not even,
That
yeah,
was never
yeah,
that was
good.
never something for me.
Yeah,
I
cool,
never
cool.
thought about it. I had
Yeah,
never thought about coaching ever.
love it, love it.
Um,
So senior
but
year, you're starting to be recruited and you're kind of thinking sports
mhm.
management. Talk to us about
So
that
then
recruiting process.
so that summer going to Miami, Ohio, I was actually getting recruited by because I reached out, talked to him. I remember my official visit,
What year did you graduate high school?
2014.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So it's 2014
Mhm.
was a weird time with Miami, Ohio, but I went out. Me and my dad went out, and it was cold. I think we had to have gone in the winter sometime. So it was cold, and we get out there, and he's reminiscing big time
Yeah,
because he had
yeah,
not
yeah,
been back.
yeah,
He hadn't been back since he graduated. So he's
yeah.
reminiscing big time. He's showing me around, and he's like, "Oh wait, you have a tour?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do." So I meet with the coaches, and I was being recruited by the combined events coach and the hurdle coach, and
Mhm.
their names are gone out of my memory right now.
Mm.
But I was being recruited by two coaches there, and I was like, they told me like, "Hey, you got to pick one. You can't do both." And I was like, "No, I could do
Mm.
both. I could do both." And it was like, "No, we're trying to tell you, like, if you
I,
do the combined events, it's going to be difficult to do the 400 hurdles because of the training that you have to do."
I love a 17-year-old telling college coaches, no, you don't know what you're talking about. I can do this.
So I mean, I'm thinking I could do it. I'm like, no, I got it. I can do it. I can do it. Me today, I know that me then was crazy to even have that thought process. Like I could do both of
You're
them. No,
17.
no, little Paris, you cannot do both. So yeah, we're talking about everything. And then I think I committed on the spot. I had committed on the spot and I was like,
Wow.
hey, I said, I'll go here. My dad never pushed me to go there. He
Wow.
never told me, hey, this is where you should go. I went here, so you should. He would just let me do my thing, you
See,
know.
so I know Miami fairly well. I coached
Mhm.
at Ball State, so we were in the same conference. They have and I don't remember where the evolution, but they're one of like now only 3 or 4 men's teams in the conference. But they don't. I don't think they had indoor track, right? Like as a sport.
They, I think they had indoor and outdoor,
Okay, they're the ones that
but
kept it. Okay.
this is what I'm about to get into.
Hmm, hmm.
Um, they ended up cutting the men's program
Right.
at one
Right.
point. So
Right.
it was actually my senior year, they had cut the men's program.
Senior
Yeah,
senior
so
year. Hold on, senior year, high school, senior year.
of high school when I was about to, yeah,
So
so I was
you
about to go,
hold on. Let's paint that picture.
yeah.
Okay. So see,
So,
going into senior year, you commit. You're like, yeah, this is where I'm going to go. I'm
mhm,
going to follow, which is kind of cool, honestly. That you're, legacy. I think is what they call it, right? Legacy
yeah,
commit. And then senior year, you're running. You feel probably feeling
mhm,
pretty good. It's like, oh man, I know where I'm going.
yeah,
I can kind of just focus on running fast, finish out the grades, yada yada.
mhm.
And then Miami cuts the program.
They cut it. They cut it. It was, I think it was a Title IX thing, but also I'm not 100% sure.
By the way,
Um,
it's almost never a Title IX thing. Just that's the excuse that we use. It's a
yeah.
priority issue with these
Mhm.
universities. What I mean, you had to feel like I just feel like here's Paris senior
I was on
year.
the top, I felt on the top of the world.
Yeah, senior year, man. I'm graduating. I feel good, but I made my school choice.
Mhm.
Like there's no bumps in the road, baby. And then
Yeah.
this barricade comes with
And then
no
that happened.
like no fault of your own. Like if senior year you coasting doing really good and you flunk biology, it's like, well, Paris, that's on you. Like
Right.
you did this had nothing to do with you, and they cut the program. Senior year
Mhm.
comes to a stop a little bit. Like, oh crap, what's going through your mind? What do you do? That's huge.
So honestly, at that time, I looked at my dad. I said, "Look, hey, I'm back to square one. I'm not
Mhm.
going to school. I said, once I graduate, I'm gonna just work." I said, "It is what it is." He was like,
Well,
"Okay."
that's a terrible decision. You just throw it all out. That's what they
Yeah,
call throwing the baby out with the bathwater. What are you talking about? Are
'cause-
you serious?
so I had some options to go to school in Maryland, and like I said before, I didn't want to go to school in Maryland. I just did not want to do it. So I was like, I just work. I make money, you
But
know.
if Miami was recruiting you,
Mhm.
other schools, even outside of Maryland, had to be
Yeah,
recruiting you.
and it were
Yeah, you didn't
Robert
fall
Morris
back.
at one
Yeah,
point.
that's what I'm saying. You didn't fall back like,
Yeah,
okay, well, I guess I'll try Robert Moore. So you just, well,
I was
screw
just
it.
throwing everything away.
Oh, Paris. I'm so glad
I was
you've
throwing
grown up
everything
and are
away.
much better, more mature
Yeah,
now. Again, you're an 18-year-old at
yeah.
this point, so I can give a lot of grace.
Mhm.
So what do? You really quit?
So no, funny enough, I was also being recruited by Aldous and Broadus University. So
Oh,
while I'm being recruited by Aldous and Broadus the entire time, Coach Jesse Winter, he was recruiting me the entire time.
yeah.
He would not leave me alone. Um, he wouldn't leave me alone. Honestly, he would not leave me alone. Which I'm actually happy nowadays that I'm happy that he didn't.
Yeah,
But
right.
he just kept texting me, calling me, whatever it was. All these things going on. Like I said, Miami had cut the program, and this is like things in March. This happens. I'm thinking I'm going there in February, and then in March, just no, and I'm like, all right, whatever. And then in April, go to Penn Relays. I see
Uh,
Coach Weiner. I see Coach Jesse Weiner there,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And he's there with I think two people on the team. They were running, I think it was a distance event and probably somebody doing a HEP. Actually two people that were my teammates, that very next year.
Mhm.
And he's talking to me and I'm looking at him like, buddy, I don't know nothing about West Virginia. I said, I know nothing about West Virginia. I don't think I would ever go to that state. And we're just talking, like he's talking to me, and I told him like honestly, I was like, I don't think I'm ever gonna go to that state. Funny enough, though, one of my teammates was already committed there and signed there for football.
Oh.
And we were teammates for football and we were teammates for track. So he's at Penn Relays with me. He meets, coach, and, we're talking. And then he was like, after the meet, he was like, "Hey, Paris, you should just come on. Like, we'd be roommates, whatever, blah, blah, blah." I was like, "Man, I don't know." He's like, "Nah, man, come on. Like, you gotta, come on with me." He said, "You're not going to Miami no more. Just come to school with me." And I was like, "Man, I don't want to go to West Virginia. I've never been there." Like that. I said, "I have never been to that state or that school." So another young decision. Sorry about that. My dog's
There's a dog.
right there.
What is the dog's name, like Broadus or something? So it's like, oh,
No,
that's talking
her
about
name's
me.
Daisy, actually, funny enough.
Daisy,
But
nice.
but yeah, so my roommate, my freshman year, he's like, "Yeah, come on, man." I was like, "All right." So I made a young decision. I was like, "All right, I'm gonna commit there." So I just
Wow.
committed, had never been to the school, anything, just committed to a school blindly.
Yeah.
And show up to orientation in the summertime. And I was looking at it, I was like, "I chose to come here. Oh my goodness." Um, I was like, "Oh my goodness." I said, "This is not what I thought I was what I was signing up for." Um, and the coach had told me, like, "Yeah, we're gonna track." Um, he was like, "We're in the talks of it." So I was like, "Okay." So when I got on the campus and I was like, "Hey, what's the track?" He was like, "Oh, yeah, we're in the talks for it." And I was like, "Okay, where is it? Where's it going to be at?" He's like, "I'll let you know whenever you get back from campus." So after I go to that orientation, I'm already signed up for classes and everything. My high school coach texts me and says, "Hey, Paris, I know about Miami and all that stuff. Are you, he said, you found another school." I said, "Yeah, I said, Joe told me about, Aldous and Broadus." And I said, I go there. Cause the coach never stopped blowing on my phone. He was like,
Right.
"What?" He said, "Well, I just got a call from UNCW about this." And I was like, "Huh?" I was like, "Wait, what?" I said, "Where's that?" He was like, "It's in North Carolina. It's down in, by the water." And I was like, "Oh, uh, well, sorry, I can't do anything with it because I've already signed to this school and I'm going here. I just got back from doing stuff for my classes."
Right.
He's like, "Oh, well," he said, "Well, it's worth asking you about it." So then we kind of left that alone. Then I end up, fast forward through the rest of the summer, because this is all in the summer that happened. I get to, the school year in my freshman year, and boom, I'm at Aldous and Broadus. And I walked onto the football team. And so
Oh,
that's a lot of people don't know that I did that. I walked into the football
yeah.
team because when I was at orientation, I saw the football coach and I was like, "Hey," and I talked to him a little bit and was like, "Hey, can I walk onto the team?" He was like, "Yeah, sure." So the head coach said, "Sure." I never talked to my position coach. Head coach said, "Sure." Never talked to the position coach or the offensive coordinator. So I went from, as I told you, in high school, I was playing more safety. I did play a little bit of receiver here and there, but when I got to college, I said, "I'm not going to worry about the defensive side. I'll worry about receiver, and I'll stick to that."
Hmm.
So whenever I move in early with football. Now I wasn't supposed to move in as early just because I was like, he said, as a walk on, you move in when everybody else moves in, and then because I'm not going to go through the camp, but my roommate was already there. So I was like, I'll move in. And that's where I met the other Paris, my RA.
Oh, jeez.
So that Paris is actually from DC,
Wow.
which we would have ran into each other many times and just did not know.
Yeah, right.
And I'm on the football team too. And, I'm just going through football stuff, go through the entire football season. And at the end of the year, I was like, actually before the first game, my track coach called me in his office and was like, "Hey, Paris, I got to tell you something." I was like, "What's that?" And he was like, "Well, he said, you're not eligible this year." And I was like, "How?" I said, "I graduated with 3.5. How am I not eligible?" He said, "Well, I'm looking at like your credits and stuff, and it's like you're half a credit short." And I was like, "What?"
No way.
So then I backtrack in my mind. I'm like, "Why could I be half a credit short?" And I was like, So we had the half a day schedule that you could have. And some people would use that half a day schedule as, hey, I'm going to school every other day. So you just put that half a day, put it together on one day. And that's what I did. So I did the every other day of school. And I dropped my forensic science class. I did not like science. Forensic science I was okay with, but I didn't want to have it because literally my day was I go to school, I go to gym, I go to one other class, I go back to gym, I go to another class, I go back to gym, and then I go to English.
Right.
And that was my day. And I was like, that's my A day. And my B day was I go to, I think it was forensic science. I go to a gym class. I go to something else. So it was like one of the days is just like, I don't really care about just being here doing the same thing over and over and over again when I could be making money while I'm in school, you know? So I just went and decided to have a, every other day of school schedule. And I thought I was good. My counselor thought she said I was good for graduation, but she didn't do for, hey, you're good for sports.
Right. So what happens?
So I'm just there. I'm still practicing.
Wow.
Still doing my training and everything. But I wasn't, I won't say I was defeated, because
I was thinking that's another roadblock.
Yeah. Somebody, you hear that, you're like, oh, dang, especially hearing from me, like, oh, when Miami, Ohio, I was like, I'm just not going to school. I was like, whatever, man. I guess I just get my grades up now and, see what happens.
Okay.
And I just stayed there, it again in Philippi, West Virginia. That's where all this brought us was.
Yeah.
Philippi, West Virginia. Nothing there. It's not much there. 30 minutes in 3 different directions to your nearest Walmart. You got an hour until you get to Morgantown, West Virginia, where West Virginia University is.
All right.
If you wanted to go to Charleston, West Virginia, you got 2 hours that you drive. So it was rough.
Yeah.
For me being from, the suburbs of Prince George's County, Maryland, of Largo, Maryland, to going to
country.
Philippi, West Virginia, the country,
country
roads for sure. It was different, but I did I did that first year, and I was like, I met some good people here, so and everybody, like my sister's dad and my uncle, he asked me, he's like, you want to leave? And I was like, I do, but I'm also too lazy to do all that extra stuff to look at other places.
Do it all over again, right? Yeah.
Because there was no transfer portal. So it was more of you talk to your AD or your compliance director.
Right.
And then the compliance director gets everything situated for you and you go.
Right.
I was just too lazy, I'll admit that. I admit it all the time. I was too lazy to leave.
So did you stay the entire time at AB?
Yeah.
Is that right? Wow.
Yep. In my entire 4 years there. So my sophomore year, and I forgot to mention this, my freshman year, we had a coach came in. She actually came from Ashland. So I knew something about Ashland. I didn't know a whole bunch, but I knew Ashland was good in track. So she had came over, and she was an All-American hurdler. I was like, all right, perfect. I got an All-American hurdler. That's my coach. She's going to help me get faster, get used to these 42-inch hurdles, get used to the 400 hurdles, more. And I'm going to be an All-American. I was like, she's going to help me get to that. She left in December.
Oh, man.
So she had left in December. She let some of the girls on the team know that she was leaving. I found out in, I think, January when I got back to school. I was like, dang, I don't have a coach. So now I'm just doing all this training on my own, and just trying to keep my hopes up, keep my hopes up during this year. Summer comes, I get a phone call from this random guy. And me and him talk about it every day, still to the day. Coach Earl Graves, so Coach Graves is actually at Mount Olive in North Carolina right now, but he called me in the summer. He's like, hey, Paris, this is Coach Graves. I'm the new sprint coach at AB. I got your number from Coach Winter. We're going to, I want to talk to you. I want to make sure I talk to you. You're the first call I'm making. I saw your time from high school. I know that you weren't running you didn't get to run last year. I want us to, build some type of relationship so that, when you get here, we can, we'll be good. And then we can get to work, we'll get to work whenever season comes by. So I was like, all right, man, that was just
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, we'll
yeah.
see. You're gonna leave too.
It was summertime. I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
you're gonna leave in December anyways.
Right,
It is what
right,
it
right.
is. Um, but no, when I got back, crazy enough, Coach Wiener, asked me to do cross. I was like, I'm not playing football. Oh, I forgot to mention, I told the coaches I wasn't playing football no more after the season.
Right.
Smart decision, I think it was a smart decision for myself, and for my career and how everything went, and for my body, honestly.
Yeah, for sure.
But I get back to school, and I'm running cross country. First time in my life ever running cross country. I didn't do all the mileage everybody else did. I didn't. I was the biggest guy on my team. I was still, I had put on weight in football.
Right.
And so I was just the biggest guy on my team. And, and then everybody else is out there is like, why is he out here? My teammates weren't saying that because they were like, hey, we need a fifth guy. And Paris, you're the fifth guy. And I was like, I'll be the fifth guy every day of the week. I will not drop from fifth because I can't. I would not be fourth though. And we would, we went through the year. And I just I liked it because the one thing I liked about it was it got, because I was a 400 hurdler, I built up the wind. So I would never tell anybody to do cross country, if they don't need to, or if they're not, asked to do it, but I would never tell anybody to do it. But it did for me. It helped me, with my win. But then also, we ate good. So I was like, hey, you feeding me. So I can't get mad at you. You're feeding me. We're good. The one thing I didn't like was every time that we went to, whenever we went to conference, I would always look at it like, dude, I'm gonna come in last. And I don't like losing. I don't like losing that much. Like at regular meets, I'm okay. Everybody knows I am a sprinter. But when you get to conference, it's like, dude, I don't want to come in last. So if I got to sprint for the last 400 meters of this race, just let me know what 400 meters is. Honestly, let me know what 800 meters is. And I'll start running there. I'll start sprinting there.
It'd be humbling.
Yeah, very much. So cross country humbled me a lot.
Yeah.
And then we will go to regionals, and we were in the GMAC. So we were in the Midwest, we're in the Midwest region, and we're always at, what school is that? It's in Indiana. I think they're D1 now.
Like IUPUI or University of Indy?
No, it's not UIndy. Oh my goodness, why am I forgetting? I think they're Flames.
Marion. Oh, the Flames? Flames UIC.
Not Flames, but it's gonna pop up in my head. Yeah. But I forget exactly what but I know it was a Native American where we ran at was a Native American site. So it's like a tombs there, Native American tombs. And we ran there the 2 years I ran cross country. We would run there for regionals. And I dreaded it. I was like, first of all, we're in this van for hours. I have to run, and it's 100 plus, maybe 200 plus people are running. I am going to get last. And my coach does not care. And I'm running a 10K. I only thought about an 8. And I'm running.
Right. Oh.
So I honestly didn't know it was a 10K until we got to regionals my freshman year.
Coach conveniently did not tell you.
Yeah, he was like, "Oh yeah, it's 10K."
Nah, just keep going, bro.
I don't know. I'm just like, dude, what? So then, I think I got fifth to last my first year. I got fifth to last, and I looked at him. I said, I didn't get last, and I told you I wasn't. I said, we beat somebody. We beat 2 teams. We beat 2 teams that year. And then the second year, same thing. I got 10th to last, I think. And I said, we beat a couple more teams. So I said, but I'm done. I ain't doing this no more. He was like, what you mean? I said, nope. You got more people. You recruited more.
Yeah, go recruit.
I'm not doing this no more. So then I got to track, and actually Coach Graves was, he said, I'm glad you're not doing cross no more. He said, I wanted you never to do it, but I couldn't say nothing.
Right.
So, right. And we get in track, and we still don't have this track. My sophomore year, no track. I'm getting into the hurdles and everything, no track. My junior year, no track. Like, okay. He's like, I didn't even ask my coach anymore. I was like, I want to ask you about the track, but I'm not. It's no need for me to even ask you about anything with the track, because you told me it was getting in my freshman year, we didn't get it. You told me it was getting in sophomore year, we didn't get it. So it was getting my junior year, we didn't have it. But they were actually talking about it. So they did break ground.
Mm-hmm.
Broke ground at the high school. It's about a 10-minute drive away. They broke ground there, and they were putting a track there. So then I think my junior year, I qualified for nationals in 400 hurdles.
Wow.
At least the provisional qualifying time. So I wasn't making it anywhere. I just hit a standard, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, all right, I like that. You know, a lot of the people that I raced in the conference meet were very fast. I think Malone had gotten to the conference my junior year.
Mm-hmm.
And that was when I had to race. He's in the NFL now, Ashton Doolin. So he came in with, the time. His times were all faster than everybody, And not the one, then the two, the 110 hurdles, the 400 hurdles. He had the best long jump. He probably would have had the best high jump.
Wow.
And me, I'm looking like, just want to win something. And also I failed to mention this. We didn't have the combined events as an event in the conference. So me being somebody that does it, we didn't have it. So I did all those events individually.
Right.
My sophomore year my junior year, my sophomore year on the track, my junior year was the first year that I actually did like a decathlon without it being a decathlon. So I did pole vault in this outdoor conference. I did pole vault. I did long jump. I did high jump. I did the 4x1. Wow. I did the 4x4. I did the 110 hurdles. I did the 400 hurdles. I did javelin. I just did not throw shot.
Wow. Holy cow.
We did all of this at the conference meet. Now, pole vault got rained out day one. We had to come back day two. So I counted it as, hey, this is a tough event. And did that. And I enjoyed it. My dad drove all the way up to see it, but Ashton Doolin, I raced him. I beat him in the 110 hurdles.
Nice.
That was his bread and butter. And I was ecstatic. I was super happy.
For sure.
I know he was pissed off. Me and him are good buddies today, but I know he was pissed off because he did not let me see a win in the 400 hurdles. So that year, I got second to him. I was like, whatever, it is what it is. And then going to my senior year, actually, after the season, Coach Graves had announced that, hey, guys, I'm leaving, So he took another job. He took a job at Mount Olive. So he's been at Mount Olive since my junior year, 2016, 2017 was that year. So 2017, he would have went down to Mount Olive, and he's been there since. And, when he left, I was like, another time with no coach. And I don't have a coach no more. But also in this time, I'm thinking about grad school for whatever reason. And I was like, grad school.
So I was going to ask you, as we're going into senior year, are you still sports management as an undergrad? And and I'm not hearing it from your story. I'm still not hearing like, oh yeah, I'm going to become a coach.
Oh, nope.
Yeah.
It's going to come in the senior year though, but that's
good.
Me.
Okay. So walk us through senior year as you start looking at grad school, for crying out loud.
Yeah, and remember I told you I didn't like school that much. So,
right. Yeah.
I'm thinking about grad school only because I was like, I got another year of track. So that's what I was looking at. I was like, I have another year of sports, so I'm in grad school. And I'm, going into senior year, I'm a sport management major with a minor in business administration. But I was taking classes in communication because one of my good friends, did the same thing, but communication was his my second minor because they forced us to have two. We had to have a minor within a sport management major. You had to have a business something minor. So that was mine, was communication, and I could have made it a major, so double major. But they told me I would have had to come back for another semester. And I said, it's not happening.
Good.
Ain't happening. But going to senior year, the coach that came in to coach me then was a year older than me. I had raced him the year prior. I had raced him. He went to East Stroudsburg. I had raced him in the 110 hurdles. He was an All-American hurdler. So I was like, I'll listen to you. I said, I won't call you coach, but I'm going to respect you. I'm going to respect you. I'm going to make sure everybody else in this team respects you, because I was just looked at as the team captain on the team. We never did votes, but everybody kind of looked to me to get anything from the coaches. They would look to me. And, I always told him, his name is Steve, Steve. We always, anything with Steve, I told him, I was like, listen, um, I I said, just help me with my 110s. I said, you help me with that, we're good. I said, I know you can't really help me too much with the 400 hurdles, but you help me with these 110s. I love you forever.
Hmm.
So he did help me with my 110s a little bit. But what I didn't know, and he mentioned this to me later, he was like, anything you do with the 110s, like he said, you're not going to run 14.2. He said, you're 5 foot nothing. He said, I'm 5 foot nothing, but I just have more speed than what you do. He said, anything I'm doing with these 110s is going to translate to the fours. And I was like, how? I just was confused. I was like, how is that going to translate? I said, it doesn't make sense. I said, if I run an 800, maybe you could say it translates, but not me running the 110 hurdles. That ain't translating. And he was like, trust me. So I did trust him. And I had qualified for nationals again in 400 hurdles. This time I ran a little faster, and I'm looking at schools to go to within this time. And because he went to East Stroudsburg, I said, you know what? Let me
Interesting.
apply to East Stroudsburg. So I applied to East Stroudsburg. I applied to Liberty University. And the only reason I applied to Liberty University was because my professors told me, hey, they have a great sport management program. So I was like, oh, okay, let me look into that. And then I also applied to West Virginia University because they also had a great, sport management program, master's program. And then the last school I applied to was IUP. So 2 PSAC schools, 2 Division I schools, 1 in Virginia, 1 in West Virginia, the 1 in West Virginia, no track. Every other school has track. Right. So I got accepted into every school.
Nice.
Now for me, it was just a decision on where do you want to go?
Right.
So I'm just thinking about it. I'm like, oh Lord, I don't know where I'm gonna go. Do I go to PA? Do I go to Virginia? Do I stay in West Virginia? Those are my decisions. And ultimately I made the decision to go to IUP. So I had some friends that went to IUP. Some people I competed against in high school.
So
friends that just went there.
Not everybody knows IUP. We're talking about Indiana University, Pennsylvania, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Just so everybody's on the same page. Keep going. You're good.
So not IUPUI.
Yeah, as I say, there's other people.
University of Pennsylvania. So I'm over there, and I go to IUP. I emailed the coaches, tried to call the coaches, all this stuff. I heard back from the distance coach, the head coach, Coach Joey Zins. And he was like, hey, yeah, they take you in. He's like, you're fast, so we definitely gonna get you here. Right. Even funnier situation. I looked back at pictures from my senior year, and IUP had came to one of the track meets we hosted at the high school. They were at a last chance meet that I competed in. And the last chance meet, I knew I was going there. The home meet, I was thinking about it, but I wasn't sure I was going to go. But I was like, whenever I look back at my pictures that pop up on my phone, I'm like, that's funny. IUP is in the background.
Yeah, right.
And I ended up going there.
Now you mentioned your senior years where coaching starts to enter the picture.
So in class, I had a professor. He used to be the AD at the school. He was the baseball coach at the school, JD Long. And JD pretty much, he told me, he was like, he looked at me in class one day because it was a coaching class we had. And I just needed it just because I needed an extra credit or so. And I was like, I'm just taking this I need these credits. So I'm gonna just take this class, whatever. It's 2 credits, 2 credit course. I'm gonna just take it. And he said, everybody in here is not going to be a coach. First day, he said, everybody in here is not going to be a coach. And I was like, yes.
You're like, yep.
He looked at me and was like, I'll see.
He's like, you will.
So we're going through the year, and he said to me, he said, Paris, you have this personality about you. There's something about you, like you'll be a coach one day. And I was like, you, JD, are crazy. I said, you're crazy. I would never coach. I said, I can't do it. I said, I can't deal with this. I said, I got my teammates that be complaining about everything. I said, in high school, oh, that was even worse. I said, I would never coach. And he said, I think you'll coach. So, I heard it. I was like, you're just talking. I said, you're old. You're just talking, man. It is what it is. It is what it is. You're just talking. So then I go to grad school, right? I do my year in grad school. I do my first year in grad school, my last year of track.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I'm getting coached by, an Olympian, Michelle Berger. She competed for Jamaica in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
I think they were the bronze medalist in the 4x4.
Wow.
So she's my coach. Her husband, Coach Duncan, he was coaching me in the hurdles. She would coach me in everything else, and he would coach me in the hurdles. And we went through that. I know you hear me talking. Calm down. But so she's coaching me in other things. She's coaching me in the hurdles, and they're like, Paris, why didn't we recruit you before? And I was like, I don't know. Why didn't you recruit me? I like it here. I have a track on campus.
Right.
The school's big. It's nice. I said, why didn't you recruit me before? And I was like, I don't know. So we had a guy that was on the team. I was from Maryland. He's from Baltimore. And I was like, see, you recruited him.
Right.
But you don't want to recruit me. And they're like, no, that's our bad. That's our bad. I was like, yeah. Mm-hmm. But, through that year, we're going through things. And then we go into, the outdoor conference meet. And I think it was the fastest, and it's still currently the fastest 400 hurdle race that conference has ever seen.
Wow.
You had the number one time in the nation at that point of time. You had, funny enough, the 5th place finisher was the national champion 2 years later.
Wow. Holy.
Sam Hartman that went to Seton Hill. He was he won the national championship 2 years later.
Wow.
But the people that ran, it was a 50 point, another 50 point, then there's a 51. And then I came through at 52 high. No, 52 low, or 52 high. So I forget exactly what it was.
So dad kept the family record? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I coached somebody faster than him though.
So I don't count. Doesn't count.
But I came through, at that time, and I was like, I was upset because of the fact that it was done. Like, hey, my track career is done. But also at the same time, I was happy that I was like, this is just, I ran fast, so I can't really be mad.
Yeah. Right.
And then that next year, I'm in school, and my I'm actually I'm like a volunteer assistant coach because I was still on campus, but I was done track. So I'm a volunteer.
Did you go into that second year like thinking like, oh, okay, I've got another year of grad school, so I'll help the team out? A little bit with the idea of like, oh, because I'm gonna become a track coach. I'm still not here, and like I'm surprised you're a track coach at this point. Yeah. Okay, all right.
So
it's just something to do.
Yeah, it's something to do because I was working at the car dealership. Yeah, that's fair. I was working. I needed some money. I was working at the car dealership. I'm doing this volunteer coaching. Yeah. But all I was really doing was just running with them. I was just running with with the 400 hurdlers and the 400 runners. That's right. And then I got a phone call. Random night, got a phone call from Jesse Weiner. He's like, hey, what you doing? And I was like, playing a game. Like, why? What's up? And he was like, you want to coach? I was like, coach where? Coach what? And he was like, coach track. He said, do you want to? Yes or no? And I was like, yeah, I get into it. I said, where at? So I knew Jesse he was leaving from Aldous and Brothers. So he was leaving at this point. He was leaving to go to another school. Right. He ended up taking a job at Virginia Wesleyan.
Right.
He was asking me about coaching, and I was thinking, he's taking me with him. Yeah. I was like, oh, go to Virginia Beach. I'm good. I'll be in Virginia Beach. That's not what it was.
Oh, wow.
He was actually calling me for the next head coach that was at Aldous and Brothers.
Wow. That you had just left a year and a half-ish ago.
Yeah, I just left a year and a half. And I was thinking he was just taking me with him.
Right.
So, he talked to me about it. He told our AD, he told her about me. Well, she already knew me. The AD already knew me. I didn't talk to her much because she was the compliance director at the time when I was in school. But she already knew who I was, all this stuff about me. And then the new head coach comes in. She had coached at a bunch of different schools. Kaylin Christopher. I always call her Miss West Virginia because she's the first woman or the first high school girl to break. Was it the run? was it the break? I think it was a break 5 minutes in 15 in
Oh
high
wow.
school.
Yeah.
So I call her Miss West Virginia. She went to WVU. And she every time I say it to her, she's like, "Oh my goodness, Paris, stop saying that." And I'm like, "No, that's you. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
I know you trying to be humble about it, but that's you."
All right.
So then she called me, a week later or so, and was like, "Hey, Paris, Jesse told me about this, this, and this, and I want to get you on an interview." I was like, "All right, I'm still in school, but I could leave at any point." So I go on my interview. Um, I think I killed it on my interview, but also at the same time, she knew she wanted to hire me because she told me, she was like, "Hey, I want to hire you."
Mhm.
And then also it was a place that I was familiar with.
Right.
Now, the hard part about that was that most of that team were my teammates, the year prior.
You're Steve.
Um, yeah. So I was like, oh, well, oh well, it is what it is.
Mhm.
So then I come in and I'm coaching, but
So
some of the
you
people on the team,
did you finish your degree at IUP?
I didn't. So
All
I was in the
right.
middle of it and I just stopped school and I was like, I'll finish this later.
Now, why though? Because you're still not a strong candidate to be I know people are speaking
Hmm.
into you. JD spoke into you. Jesse thought about calling you for this, things like that. But it's not like it's your calling at this point.
Hmm.
I'm not really sure you had a calling at this point. You wanted to be in
Hmm.
sports, so you're still kind
Yeah.
of pursuing that educationally. So I'm surprised that you weren't like, yeah, I can do that, but I got to get my grad. Like I'm already,
Hmm.
at least halfway through it. But you just like, okay, let's go try this.
Yeah, I think that was just me taking a leap of faith right
Yeah.
there, honestly.
So
Um,
how did that work? Because this is an interesting topic because you started talking about it with Steve. So
mhm.
I believe that there should short of being an actual rule, I don't think if you undergrad at Alderson Broaddus that you should be allowed to do grad work at Alderson Broaddus because
Yeah.
I just think like man Paris on Friday your boys with the team and you're playing Xbox in the dorms and all this kind of stuff and then Monday now you're in grad school you're the grad coach you're supposed to be Coach
Mhm.
Vaughn like there's no way that works out the way it's supposed to work out. And so when you mentioned about Steve, he didn't go to Alderson Broaddus, but he
Mhm.
still, like you said, you're like, dude, I know you're a year older than me. Like I raced against you last year. Like, what are you talking? Like, and now I'm supposed to call you coach. That's hard for a 21-ish, 22-year-old kid. You're still a kid at that point
Yeah.
to do that. So I 100% see that. So now you're, like I said, you're Steve. So now you come back and there's your boys. There's a lot of people on the team. You were just kicking it with, playing Xbox and stuff. And now you're supposed to be Coach
Yeah.
Vaughn. How did you handle that?
So I how it went was actually pretty. It was that was like I said, that was a little hard part.
Sure.
But it was easy in a sense because most of the guys that I was teammates with, um, they were younger. So my team actually when I graduated, the team was young.
Yeah, because
We
you're
had
you're
our
a year and
seniors.
you're in a year and a half removed, so there is some.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we had some seniors. When I graduated, it was a good load of the team were
Hmm.
seniors.
Hmm.
And then everybody else was a freshman or a sophomore.
Right.
So then when I graduate, now they're sophomore, junior.
But you're still that makes a lot of sense. There's a few
Mhm.
people that still know you, but not like the majority of the team
Yeah,
or
so it's not the
whatever.
majority of the team now.
But you're still a 23, 24. So you're still for some of these kids only a
Mhm.
year or two, maybe 3 years old. It's a little bit like, oh, dude, I just watched film on you. Like we just watched the
Right.
the conference meeting. There you were. Like, what do you mean
And
you're
that's
now
and that's what
coach?
some of them said, and
Yeah.
um for them it was they looked at it a little weird. I looked at it a little weird, but
Yeah.
then also it was just kind of a gain and trust thing, for me with them. I was like, I gotta gain y'all trust somehow.
Yeah.
And I was the assistant coach and the head coach was like, hey, I'm not telling you to be mean. I'm
Hmm.
not telling you to change who you are to
Hmm.
fit a coaching role. Be yourself. I was
Hmm.
like, okay, I'm just not going to hang out with nobody. I said, at the end
Yeah,
of the day,
yeah.
that's the one thing I just can't
That's
do
where
it.
that's where I don't feel like the undergrad who stays and becomes a crack coach is
Yeah,
like, yeah, something's telling me you still hanging out. I just
yeah,
everybody that's had on not many people, but I've had a few that have done that. And I was like, how'd you handle that? And one person, I can't remember who they were, but they said, I probably looking back at it now, I probably could have handled it better. And I was like, I know exactly
Mhm.
what that means. You were hanging
Yeah.
out. You can't be doing that. So it still doesn't feel like kind of using that light switch analogy, that it's
Hmm.
clicked that you are Coach Vaughn. It feels like you could coach, you could be like that coach from Ashland. It still feels like in December you could leave and go back to grad school or
Right.
a sports market. So where does the switch flip, if you will, that, oh, okay, this is what I've been, didn't even know I was searching for this, but this is what I've been searching for. I am a track coach.
I think it might have been the first meet. So
Oh, okay.
I got to campus in November.
Okay. Makes sense.
First meet's the first weekend of December.
Yeah.
So I got there like at the beginning of November, I believe. And I'm there. We're going through our practices. It's like, yeah, it is what it is, kind of thing. Like they're looking at me like, this guy's young,
Yeah.
but also at the same time, it's like I'm still like 2 or 3 years older than y'all.
Yeah.
So, but I also told them, hey, you don't got to call me Coach Vaughn. Coach Vaughn was never a name that I ever told them to call me. I said, you can call me Coach P, Coach Paris. The people that were my friends. I was like, you just call me Paris. And it
When
was
you were
only
coaching them, you were like, it's
yeah,
cool. You can call, all right. No, no.
because I was young. I was like, I'm not going to try to pull that out of you. I'm not going to pull teeth.
See, I can see that. I don't agree with it, by the way, but I don't
Yeah.
agree with it because I'm a 48-year-old guy at
Hmm.
this point. I can see when you're in the because now, hopefully, now you can see it a little different. It's like, oh, I have to create separation. That's
Yeah.
what that title coach does. It creates
Yeah.
separation, and it's not like, oh, we're homeboys and you just happen to tell me, bark out orders what to do. You've been boys with people where it's like, well, I don't agree with you, so I'm going to push back because you're my boy.
Mhm.
You can't do that with a coach,
Right.
so you got to create that separation. Yeah, that's a little tough. But I can see as a
Mhm.
first time coach, I get it. I get it. Makes sense.
So the other thing is like, I think the one senior on the team was one of the girls, and that's like my best friend.
Yeah,
Even to this day, it's like my best friend. So
sure, sure.
she kind of made sure to
Yeah,
handle that with everybody else.
yeah,
Like, hey, just don't. So everybody looked up to her. So
yeah,
she helped me in that sense
yeah,
too.
yeah.
But I did have a rule for them, and I told them, I said, hey, listen, this is if you see me out, you got to go rule.
Yeah, yeah.
So I said, and it was one place in town, it's called Lil Mo's. I said, if I'm in Lil Mo's and y'all see me,
Hmm.
you got to leave. If you're there and I walk in, guess what? You got to leave
Hmm.
because I'm now in there. So we always laughed at it, but they always made sure that, oh, if I see coach, I'm gonna just leave out just because give him his boundaries and,
Hmm.
et cetera. So
So what
that was
happened
a
in that?
good thing.
Yeah, for sure. What happened in that first meet that was like, oh, you said something clicked in the first
Mhm.
meet, the very first one?
It was our high jumper. One of our high jumpers. She actually coaches at Adrian College now. And she broke the school record in high jump. And I was like, this is with a couple weeks of practice. You broke the
Yeah.
school record in high jump. I must know what I'm doing
Hmm.
just a little bit.
Yeah.
She broke the school record there. One of my 400 girls, she had, I think we put her on a 500. And she was from Morgantown, West Virginia. We ran it at WVU. So she was home. And she didn't run the fastest race. And she came to me and said, hey, coach, I ran that terribly. And I looked at her, I was like, mhm. So no, yes, no, no,
Hmm.
no saying, hey, you ran that terrible. But it was that. And then I remember it was a couple, like 20 minutes later, she was, the head coach was like, hey, did you tell her she ran a race terribly? I was like, no. She said, well, she said that you said, and I was like, whoa, wait a second. This didn't
Hmm.
happen. So then that also brought me to, that was like a pro of the meet and then a con of the meet. And it was like,
Right.
huh, okay, now I see how this is. And I see kind of how I got to go about this.
So what
Um,
did let's stay there for a second. Let's double click in there. So what did that teach you?
for one, it taught me, hey, make sure that you're not just to everything. You gotta like explain the race, explain this, and this for them, because everybody's not going to get it.
Right.
I was a guy when I ran. It's like I finish my race, I break down my race to my coach, and then I get the feedback. Or what I thought, and then I want the feedback. Then I realized like, oh, everybody's not like that.
Right.
Everybody doesn't. They want. I got to break this down for you so you can see it, and then I get your feedback from what you heard from me,
I think
rather
that's
than reverse.
I think that's one of the hardest things for athletes who become coaches. And maybe the level of hardness goes up the better an athlete you were, right?
Hmm.
Like I wonder, I have to ask him this one time. Like I wonder about Carl Lewis, who's turned into a fantastic coach and obviously was a
Yeah.
superstar athlete. I wonder how long of a transition for him of it was like, oh, well, this is what worked for me, whether it's communication or a
Hmm.
workout, etc. So it should work out. Like just do what I did and you'll get better. I think
Right.
that's the hardest part of the athlete turning to a coach transition is, oh, I've only dealt with myself. Like I've only
Hmm.
dealt with coaches telling me what to do and how did that, what did I take and translate that into the workout and the race? I now have 20, 30, whatever number of kids in front of you that are all different. They're not all little
Yep.
Parises. they're, they're a lot of different people, and and communication is different for each one of them. How they understand things, how they want to be talked to is different.
Hmm.
And that's a hard thing to learn, especially, 2 weeks in, for crying out loud,
Yeah.
into a career at this point. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. And so that whole indoor season it was like a learning thing. Like
Hmm.
I was learning
Hmm.
every day, every week, learning from them learning from me. And it was really for me learning from them. It was more of like, okay, this works, this doesn't work.
Hmm.
This works for this person. This doesn't work for everybody else. This works for, so
Yeah, that's right.
I was learning, jotting down notes, in school, I was always the note taker. So I was always jotting down notes, just saying, okay, this is how I got to do this. This is how I got to attack this day, attack the next day, whatever it is. That's also the year of COVID. So
Uh,
we went through the entire indoor season.
yeah.
That was the last year that we actually were in the GMAC, because after that year, Ashland was coming to the GMAC. We
Mm.
were leaving and going to the MEC. Um, and we didn't know nothing at that point in time. Nationals comes around. We don't have anybody at Nationals. Head coach was like, hey, do you want them to run at a spring break meet? So she actually asked me for, hey, do you want them to do this? And I was like, after how indoor went with my group, I said, I'm gonna give them time off and then we come back and, unless you want to do it. And she was like, no, I was just trying to figure out what you want to do and then we'll go from there. So then we go spring break. I actually went back and hung out with my grad school, my friends and teammates from grad school, hung out with them. And I got a phone call. I answered the call, like, hey, Paris, good news, you still got a job. Bad news, COVID, something with COVID and yada, yada,
Uh,
yada. Everybody got to leave campus there. There's no
yeah,
more seating.
don't come back. Yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't a don't come back for me.
Uh,
It was more of like, hey, we got to tell all the kids, we got to find out a way to tell the kids, like,
right.
no season.
Right.
So I'm sitting there, I'm on the beach, I'm typing up notes on my phone, like, how can I put this? And I kept sending it back to her. I was like, how do we, and she was like, okay,
Right.
that works. And so I sent the message to him. And she wanted me to do it because I had a better connection just because of my age being closer. So I sent it to him, let them know, and they were like, oh, what the heck? So
Hmm.
then I finally get back to West Virginia. And little by little, they're coming in, grabbing their stuff. COVID, we're like, what in the world is that?
Yeah. No,
I
no.
don't, I don't know. So that year goes by. The next year comes, there's no indoor season the next year.
Hmm.
And the head coach was like, hey, I'm gonna let you know this. I might not be coming back.
Hmm.
After this first semester, I might not come back. And I was like, what you mean? She was like, well, I just got to drive this hour to and from. She said, I'm not moving into Philippi. I live in Fairmont, West Virginia. I'm not driving my husband, her fiance at the time, her husband now, he worked at West Virginia University as a nurse. She's like, we're not moving because I just got back to West Virginia. I'm not going to have, and I was like, okay, I understand. Then we had to set up a Zoom call with the team.
Hmm.
So that Zoom call was a crazy one because she was explaining to people like, hey, I'm not coming back, um, and they didn't, the team just like didn't understand it. So then second semester comes, AD names me interim head coach. So this is my second year of coaching.
Yeah.
I'm named the interim head coach, and I'm like, what the heck? Going through everything there, we still, she's named me interim head coach. She's like, hey, I'm gonna name you interims for the year just because we're gonna do some searching for other people to come in. He's like, all right, cool. You know, I'll hold the fort down until somebody else comes in. I said, I want to learn from somebody else because I said, I learned from Kaylin, but I also don't think I'm ready for this. So I'll learn from somebody else.
Yeah.
So we're interviewing people. And then it's like, I think we had 3 candidates on campus and just didn't, you know, she didn't like them. You know, our AD didn't like them. She was like, nah, it won't do it. So then she's like, yeah, well, guess what? I'm dropping that tag. You're the head coach. I was like,
Wow.
okay, I guess. And I think I was at that point, I think I was the youngest head coach in the nation, maybe.
Where to set up my question that I always ask first time head coaches, before I ask that, what are you doing, if anything, that's fine, with coaching education? And, you know, for me, coaching education is formal and informal. Formal being like USATF level 1, level 2,
Mhm.
USTIF CCA, ALTIS, things like that. Informal, and both of these are extremely important, so I don't necessarily put one above the other. Informal is mentors, people that you call, like, hey, I'm struggling with this 400 hurdler. What have you done? Hey, can you take a look at this film? You know, those kind of things. What are you doing at this point, up to the interim head coaching position at Aldous and Broadus? What are you doing coaching education wise?
So I didn't do any formal coaching education at that time. Informal wise, I was calling all my old coaches. That's really all I was doing, was calling all my old coaches, asking them for their advice for something.
You
Then
probably,
also,
yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
then also the other thing is like, hey, was I like this? You know, as an athlete, was I like this?
Oh
So
yeah,
it
sure,
was
sure.
more of just talking to
Yeah,
all of my old coaches,
that's fair.
really.
And you probably weren't going to convention at this
No,
point.
no,
Yeah,
no.
yeah,
We
that's
didn't
what I
have
figured.
nobody. We didn't fundraise the budget for that first year,
Yeah, that's what I.
or that's that first or that second year. Actually, we
Yeah,
didn't raise any money for it.
I,
So
I would assume that that's fair. Okay, so now the interim tag pulls off. Now you're the you're the head honcho at a
mhm.
very young age.
Yeah.
You're not ready. Almost nobody is ready for their first head
Mhm.
coaching job because we don't do a very good job of supporting our assistant coaches to become head coaches. You didn't even have time to be supported to become a head coach. You're so young, and COVID's going on. Things like
Mhm.
that. So AD says, "Hey, tag, you're it. You're going
Yeah,
to be the
exactly.
head
Yeah.
coach." What's the first thing? Is there a person you called? Was there a there? I assume you're a smart enough guy. There had to be some like, okay, well, I need to get some help here. Whether it's a book, a class, a person. What's one of the
Mhm.
first things you did?
So the very first thing I did, I actually called, well, outside of calling my parents and everything, I
Sure,
called
sure.
Coach Graves. And I called him and
Yeah,
I was talking to
yeah,
him.
yeah.
So I think at this time he was promoted to director at Mount Olive during this time of me being the head coach.
Okay.
And I'm sitting there talking to him like, hey, I'm lost. How do
Yeah,
I
yeah.
explain to me this, this, and this? You know,
Yep.
just
That's
just
very
help me with
fair.
this.
Hmm.
So he explained his side. Then I called Jesse Weiner. He
Hmm.
explained his. He was
Yeah.
like, "Well, I did leave these things at the school for you, like, and he did leave some books."
Hmm.
Then
Hmm.
Coach Graves, he mailed me some books.
Nice.
Um, so I was doing any research I could
Good.
through all the stuff that they sent me. Um, I think I got most of those books right here under my table here in my
Nice.
living room.
Nice.
But
Nice.
I'm reading those books. I'm like,
Yeah.
all right. I said, okay, I'm back in school. I'm back
Yeah,
in school.
that's right. Yeah,
Coaching
yeah.
school again. You
And in
know,
school that you're responsible for however many
right.
kids you have on the team. That's where I think
Hmm.
most head coaches come from, a posture of like, what in the world did I just get myself into? Because I don't want to let them down. I want them to have the best experience possible on this team, whether it's, running or just being part of the team. And here I am. I'm the one responsible for that. I don't know what the frick I'm doing, man. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think it comes from that, you feel the responsibility. Is that Daisy poking her nose there?
Yeah, that's all right. So,
Good dog, good
but
dog.
yeah, the other part about it is like I didn't have an assistant at this time, so
Right,
it was just me.
right.
And while it's just me, we're just how to say it, we were just thugging it. We
Sure.
were going through it, seeing how we could do,
Yep.
right? We had a small team. I think we had about it's probably about 20 something people on
Yeah.
the team.
Probably thank
So
goodness.
yeah, I was
More people, more just stuff,
yeah.
right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Hmm.
I was actually happy it was not too many people on the
Yeah,
team at
for
that
sure,
time.
for sure.
So we're making it through, doing
Yeah.
what we got to do.
Hmm.
And then I finally did hire I hired a distance coach at some
Hmm.
point.
Hmm.
And he was an alumni from IUP.
Hmm.
So me and him never connected. We never crossed paths.
Hmm.
We graduated the same year. He left. I
So
got in there.
how did you hire someone? And what I mean by that is this is part of the training that just never comes up in
Hmm.
coaching, right? I've said this in the past several episodes here about, 10 years ago, when you'd go to a track clinic, USTFCA convention, 80 to 90% of the talks would be about how to coach a hurdler better, how to coach a thrower, the X's and O's part of it. And 10% would be about all the rest. And we're learning, I say we, me, through, talks on social media and the podcast and stuff that, it might be the X's and O's are the easy part. And that's hard to say for a guy who was a big coach and education guy, but all the other stuff is more important. And one of those things that I've yet to see this as a topic, and maybe we've had it at convention and I just didn't see it. But I've yet to see, hey, okay, first time head coach or whatever, first time you're going to hire and fire people, like you're a head coach now, you're responsible for this. There's a way to properly do and not do hiring. Here you are, you're thrown in the middle of it. I appreciate your
Yeah.
leadership of stepping in. You could have ran. If
Hmm.
you'd have told me like, if you'd have told me like, hey, Miss AD, I'm not ready. And so, Mike, I left and I went and applied for this other assistant job. I'd be like, yeah, I get it. No judgment. I get it. But your leadership, you're like, okay, well, if it's going to fall on my shoulders, it's going to fall on my shoulders. And I may not be perfect, but I'm going to do the best I can. I appreciate that tremendously. Um, but so it's interesting. You said, okay, now I hire a distance coach. You had no clue. You knew how you had been interviewed at different
Yeah.
spots. That's all you knew. How did you do it? And would you have done things maybe now because you're a couple years more past and have done this, maybe and been involved more experience with this stuff? Would you have done it differently now?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So my way of doing it was I was just calling people. I said, hey, y'all know a distance coach? Y'all know anybody who wants to coach that does distance? Calling all my friends, calling coaches, and they're trying to send somebody. They're like, I'll look. And I'm like, okay. So then I went on Google and I said, interview questions for coaches. And I just pulled that and I literally went word verbatim reading that to
Yep.
I think I had two applicants.
That is a great that is my biggest fear. Now I appreciate you using your resources, and today we'd maybe use
Mhm.
Chat GPT, right? Uh,
Yeah.
but that is coaching by Google.
Yeah.
Now I'm not judging. Please don't hear me say that, Paris.
Hmm.
That's what you had in front of you. But it's like, man, like my heart just wants to help all these other assistant coaches and first time head coaches. Like, man, you should be taught that. Your
Yeah.
administration should help you with that. If you're an assistant coach on a staff, your head coach should involve
Hmm.
you in those things. Say, hey, here's how I do it, and here's how I learn. These are skills that can improve, and so therefore need to be taught. And for you
Yep.
to Google them, like, come on, this isn't a senior year project. This is
Hmm.
another man or woman's life in your hand. Like, giving them an assistant coaching job or not giving them an assistant coaching job can dramatically affect their lives and yours, by the way. You got to deal
Yeah.
with them being on campus and things like that. So it just pains me to know that
Yeah.
this is not uncommon. I guarantee you this is a story told 100 times of, yeah,
Hmm.
man, no one told me what to do. They just told me to hire someone, and so I was like, all right, Google, what do I ask? That's
Yeah.
crazy to me. We got to do better for our coaches is essentially what I'm getting at here.
So yeah, so the one guy that everybody had mentioned to me, he like I said, he was an alumni from IUP. Um, he was a distance guy. He was through and through distance. So he said he wanted to do it and he came over, came down and he was coaching with me. The thing about the assistant job at Artisan Broadus, it was technically part-time, but as we all know, coaching is never part-time. So he wasn't getting paid much anything. Um, I found a way to get him to live on campus, get him housing, got him meals. And I was like, hey, I'm trying to do what I can to get you the bulk of everything.
Mhm.
You're not making a whole bunch of money, but it's also cheap here. So, he took that whim to come in, and we, did what we could. Got that conference. I think after he was hired and everything, we went through the year, got the conference, outdoor conference, and I'm trying to think what his people did. I think he had two people that had scored in the 5K, I believe. Um, I had somebody that scored in the, high jump 4x1. It's also a new school record in the high jump. So just different people that had scored,
Yeah.
and I was like, shoot, I'm a first-time head coach and I got people scoring. I'm
Yeah.
doing something
Something's
positive.
right. That's
We're in
right.
a brand new conference.
Yeah.
I'm doing something positive.
Maybe.
And then that summer, he left.
Hmm.
Now, the reason that he left was he was going to get his doctorate. So
Nice.
it's like, I'm not going to be upset at you for that.
Yeah.
You're going to get your doctorate. I am not going to do that. So he left for that. And then I had to go through another hiring process. This time I did not use Google. I actually asked questions. I made it like a regular conversation first, and then we did the interview pieces. And I hired this person. She actually, her husband went to school with me, and I did not know. So her husband was actually one of the baseball coaches. She actually taught at an elementary school, so she was teaching and coaching. We went through that entire year, and she was killing it. She literally killed it. Funny enough, I coach at LR now. She was at two schools that are in this conference, So she went to Limestone first, and then she transferred from Limestone to Anderson. And Coach Kevin Eagle, that's at Anderson, was her coach. And I had to call him to figure out, like, hey, do you think she'll be a good candidate?
Right.
And he was like, yeah, I love her, blah, blah, blah. So that helped me within everything to hire her.
For sure.
Then from there, we had a 800 champion. So she coached the 800 champion on the women's side. She coached a 1500, I think, fourth place finish. So we're doing what we got to do to keep this thing rolling, bringing in a bunch of kids. I think that first year I was the head coach, I brought in 20 kids, most of them from Maryland.
Yeah,
so
of course.
I was trying to bring a bunch of kids from Maryland. I was like, hey, I'm here. Just come on over.
You don't want to stay in state just like me? Come on.
So we bring all those kids in. When she gets there, I think I actually had one kid from California as well. Wow. So got Maryland kids, got a California kid, got, all these other kids, it's different states. And we're bringing in.
I mean, if you're from Maryland and you didn't know about Alderson Broaddus, what is that California kid thinking?
She knew nothing. She knew nothing about the school. She told me, hey, coach, only reason I came was because you had a good connection. Me and you had a good connection. And then you had a good connection with my mom. So
it's amazing how often I hear that story. That's cool. Hey, in the essence of time, Paris, let's move forward just a little bit here. So how long were you at Alderson Broaddus, and why do you leave and where do you go?
So I was there from 19 to 23, the summer of 23.
Yeah.
And I have to say the summer of 23 because the school ended up shutting down.
Yeah.
So when the school shut down,
you're kind of a curse. I'm finding out. Miami. Hi. just kidding. I'm just kidding.
So yeah, the school ended up shutting down.
Yeah.
We found out probably a week before football moved in.
Any like when you look back now, like indicators, like, oh boy.
I mean, you could see some, but also in the sport world, we didn't see much of that at all. Like it was like yes, but also no, but yeah. So that kind of happened.
You're a little insulated with sports.
Yeah. So it was a sad time.
I mean, it's one thing, and I'm not sure what's worse, to be honest with you, when a program gets cut or a school closes down. The school closing down has to be worse because it affects more people, even though, my focus is on tracks. I'm always concerned about my track people and coaches, but I mean, who goes through that experience? I mean, no one, air quotes here, thank God, goes through getting their program dropped, meaning, it does not happen a lot. I know we love to tell the Chicken Little story that, we're cutting programs left and right. That's just not true. Thank goodness. But we do have programs that cut. I get it. I'm not taking that down. Schools closing down just doesn't happen. I mean, again, we hear of one school here and there, so it does happen, but not again regularly. Most people are going to go through their entire career and their school is not going to close down.
Right.
That has to be a little surreal. Like, what do you mean the schools what school closes? What are you talking about? We're closing. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah. So everybody there was confused. I'm getting phone calls out the wazoo from the team. And I'm like,
what does that mean?
I said, hey, I'm going to put y'all on a Zoom call. So I'm not answering one call at a time. So I think I did the Zoom call that very next day after we found out. So it's August 4th. I found out August 5th, I had the Zoom call. Wow. Then I get a random, and I mean, super, super random Facebook message by a guy I don't think I've ever talked to, but I had him on Facebook. Kevin Patterson.
Yeah.
So KP, he had one of these Gil talks,
Yeah. So he's a Gil
and
podcast alum. That's right.
yep. So when I talked to, he randomly sent me a message. I get messages from other coaches like, "Oh yeah, I see this person, asking about the kids." He actually called me about me. He sent me a message about me, and said, "Hey, can I get you on a phone call tomorrow?" I said, "Yeah, let me check my schedule." I didn't have anything on my schedule except for talking to the team. And then I got on a call with him. We were talking. He was like, "Hey, man, I'm sorry to hear all that. It was surprising to me that it happened because he said, I saw that you had one of these guys that was, almost at nationals. I saw y'all at Lee." And I was like, "Oh, y'all were at Lee?" And then he was like, "You also went to Mount Olive that next day." And I was like, "How you know?" Okay, I guess you can really look this up. So, we're talking about this. He was like, "Hey, you want to come down here to," he said, "I know you're probably, I don't know if you are or not, but looking for a job. I got an opening, you want to come down here?" And I was like, "Yeah." He said, "What you doing on Thursday?" So literally a couple days, 3 days later, he was like, "You want to come down?" So I said, "Yeah." I drive down. It wasn't too far. It was a 3-hour drive, 3.5-hour drive down, meet him for dinner the day before. We're chatting it up. Then I go to my interview the next day. And I loved it. He brought me around. I saw a track on campus and I said, "You don't got to tell me anything else."
You don't need much, Paris. I love this.
I said, "You don't got to tell me anything else." I already did my research on the team. I saw who was on the team. I saw, at least who was on the team that year prior. And I was like, "This team's amazing." So going through that, before I left after our interview, I looked at him. I said, "I ain't leaving until, you let me sign something." He was like, "Oh no, I'm offering you the job, but I can't do anything right now."
Yeah, I don't have anything to sign. I'm not HR. Yeah.
So I was like, "Okay." So I leave. I go back home. I let my roommate know. And my roommate was the women's basketball coach at the time, and me and him, we went to college together. We went to Alderson Brothers together.
Yeah.
So I'm letting him know. I was like, "Hey, I just got offered a job at LR." He was like, "Dude, LR is a gold mine," and I was like, And he's a big sports junkie, you ask him any school, he knows it.
Yeah.
He knows the history behind it. So, me and him talking, and he was like, "That's an amazing place." So time goes on. I ended up coming to LR. And once my feet got set here, I was working. Day one, I was working.
Yeah.
So I'm working. I'm not really doing anything else. I'm not exploring the campus. I'm not exploring the town. Right. I'm working. And I'm enjoying it though. It's not like I'm working and hating it. I'm working and I'm enjoying every second.
Yeah.
I was able to watch. Well, I watched it online because I didn't go to Nationals indoor.
Right.
I was able to watch online. Alexis Brown win. A national championship. A couple of them. Yeah. And I was like, "Look at that!" And this girl, I see her every single day. I might not coach her directly, but I see her every single day. I talk to her every day. Yeah. And then fast forward, we get to outdoor. We got people qualify for nationals. Multiple people qualify for nationals. Then I have my first couple people that qualify that are in. And I was like, shoot, I've coached somebody that qualified. I've qualified myself, but I just didn't make it. The only athlete that I coached that qualified, he didn't make it.
Right.
Now I got these athletes that made it. So
cool. That's cool.
It's like I'm seeing everything. I'm happy. I'm super happy. So then we get to nationals. I have a podium finisher in the 400 hurdles. I have somebody just missed the podium in the decathlon, and then my 100 hurler, she just missed it as well. Wow. She didn't run much of the year, and made it to nationals. So then also I saw 2 national championships that day as well.
So how many years have you been at LR now?
This is my second year.
Okay.
And I'm getting into that part.
Okay, keep going.
So this summer happens. And Kevin, he let us know. It's like, hey, he came to campus and then let us know, like, hey, I took this job at Central Missouri. Then he looked at me, it's like, Paris, I'm telling them you're the only person that is for the job. He said, you've done what you need to do. You've been a head coach before. You got thrown into the fire as a head coach and you did well. You can recruit, you can do all these things. And, he's talking to me about it. He's talking me up to myself. And I'm like, dang, you don't even make my head any bigger.
He's like, yeah, that's right. You're a genius.
So our athletic director at the time, she, Still took me through the interview process, and then promoted me to interim head coach.
Wow.
So for me, now it's, hey, we need a distance coach. Hey, we need a throws coach. Hey, we need a person to replace Coach Patterson. So I had to hire 3 people.
Wow.
So one of which I already knew who I was going to, bring in. I called again. I called my handy dandy. Who am I gonna call? Coach Graves. I
That's
called him.
right.
It's like, hey, do you have a thrower that just graduated that wants to be a GA, get into the profession, and kind of work through some things, and then also stay in North Carolina and work with me?
Right.
He was
Right.
like, yeah, I might have somebody. So he couldn't find exactly who, so he called Coach Potter, that's also there, and
Yeah.
Coach Potter's the throws coach.
The
He
Gil
called me
Pod,
and sent me.
Gil
Yep.
podcast alone. Yeah, that's right. That's
And
right.
it sent me the guy. So you get Dorian Tober that comes in, just fresh grad, and I was like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm talking to him like, hey, let's make this work. And then there's 2 others that I hired. One of which who's been coaching for a while, actually went to school with one of my sisters, but didn't know he went to school with one of my sisters, and I didn't know until later. And then a guy that I competed against in college. I hired him as our quarter miler coach, pretty much. So now we have a full staff. We're going through everything we need to go through.
Right.
And, just kicking it through the season,
Yeah.
indoor, we saw a very successful indoor.
Yep.
And, we've seen a national champion and national records being
Yeah.
broken.
It's amazing.
I saw you there. In this outdoor season, we've been having a time. I'll
Right.
say that.
Yeah,
We've
you're
been having a time.
doing good. Brings us to today. So again, brings us back to today. And so for the next 5-10 minutes here, Paris, and first of all, pause. I don't want to diminish. You're doing a great job. When you became the interim, I don't know if I was the first person. I won't make that claim, but I know I immediately reached out and was like, hey, all right, so now what do we do to erase the interim tag?
You were probably, I want to say you probably might have been you were in the top 3 people
Yeah,
that
this is
reached out
always
to me
like, all right,
immediately.
cool. Intern, because intern to me is it's fluid. There's not like I can't build roots with interim. So I'm always like, well, get one way or the other, get rid of the interim tag, meaning, become the head coach. Like, how do we make that happen? Or go somewhere else. Like you
Yeah.
can't, it's just that's a flu. I would never sign with a coach who's an interim tag personally. Cause I'm like, well, you may not be here. Like
Right.
and you understand that. Like, you can't tell me you're going to be here. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, all right, so how do we bust butt and prove that you're the guy? You should be the head coach, not the interim. So I appreciate that, and just don't want to gloss over, because I'm speeding up here just a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, a good of a job you've done, and just really appreciate that. And we get kind of a little bit of insight to that on the other side of Kevin Patterson's side of the whole thing too. And if you're interested in that, you got to go listen to his episode. What I'm interested to talk here to the last few minutes here, Paris. So I have this guy, and I'm not going to call out names, but I've got a guy who follows me on Twitter. Great guy. I mean, like track nerd, in all the positive ways, and specifically HBCU track nerd. And there's been a couple of things. I'm a very positive person, so I love when people are positive about track and field and things like that. So he'll tell me like, oh, did you see so and so at Alabama State? I'm like, yeah, man, they do a great job. Blah blah blah, they do good. And so and so at this university. I'm like, oh yeah, that's so cool. It's great to see that. And he's made a couple of comments, and I'm just using him as an example because other people have inadvertently or on purpose have made these. Yeah, I went to school in Alabama, bro. These big vocabulary words for me here. But he's made a comment like, oh, such and such is running real well. Boy, I wish he would transfer to Howard with Do, and how good would he get? Or I wish he would transfer to Allen at NCA&T and see how good he would be. And I'm like, and Dio and Allen, good friends, love those guys. I mean, come on, we're hurdlers. They're
Yeah.
us, right? It's a joke for me to call myself a hurdler. I'm so terrible, but I identify as a hurdler. I love the hurdles. It's the best event in the world. And so this is not shade at Dio and Allen. What I don't think that person understands is they're throwing shade at that person's current coach. It's like, wait, that kid runs so fast. Or jump so far, whatever the event is. That coach has done that, whatever school they're at. What do you mean go to Do and he'll be better? Like, you're throwing shade on that coach. What are you talking about? And maybe they will, or I don't know, but they certainly don't seem to be needing to leave. They're running stupid fast. Like, they're qualified for nationals. What do you mean They should go somewhere else. And that's amongst the HBCU world. We have the same uh, in society thought process a lot with D1 versus D2, and inside of D1, even a kid runs fast at my alma mater, Troy University. It's like, well, imagine what that kid could run if they went to LSU or something. It's like, what do you mean? Maybe slower, by the way. And that's not
Yeah.
shaded tennis. He's a great coach, but it's like, what do you mean? Like they're being successful exactly where they're at.
Hmm.
Why in the world is the automatic thought, well, gosh, if they were at a big school? And so at a school, I'm always interested in these schools. Like for you, you're at the Division II school, doing a great job, killing it. So like I said, national, I mean, really fast. Like, how do we, like, what's your, I'm not sure really what the question I want to ask here, Paris. It's more of a statement of like, they're doing a great job, but I just don't understand why people will say that, like with this whole roster spots and stuff, that, oh, this is going to limit people's ability, their opportunities. And I'm like, okay, so if a kid grew up in Louisiana and always dreamed of going to LSU, maybe they can't go to LSU now. They're running 10-20, 10-30, and that's not good enough on a 45-man roster. I don't know if that's actually going to be true. Actually, they'd be a 35 because they're in SEC,
Yeah.
right? That doesn't limit that person's potential. They can go to your school. They can
Yeah.
go to Lenoir-Rhyne. They got a great coach at Lenoir-Rhyne. Like that's what and it's like, you're going to take a 10-30, 10-20 kid. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Absolutely.
yeah, right. Yeah, yeah. That's where I just don't understand. It's like, man, we have all these great coaches in junior college, NAIA, D3, D2, non-power five, power four, Division I. We're not limiting opportunities. You have an opportunity for kids right there at LR. Like, how do you? So I don't really have a question here, Paris. This is more of just conversation. This is the awkward part of the podcast, everybody. I'm
Yeah.
wondering, how do you, like, sitting in your seat? How do you deal with that stuff? How do you recruit? How do you leave some distractions out? How do you fight poachers? I don't know if that's the right. That's not a great term, because I'm calling a coach a poacher if I say that. So I don't want to call it that. How do you just handle all this stuff in today's NCAA world?
Well, it is a, like you said, it's a tough thing. And it's a challenge here and there, but also at the same time, it's really just, it lets you know that you're doing something well,
Yep,
right?
that's a great point. Yep.
That's the one thing I like to always look at is, when a lot of times when people are doing well, a lot of other people will want to have that same success with the same person. And I mean, I know from experience that, hey, just because this person's running fast at this place doesn't mean if I get them, they're going to run fast with me.
That's right.
Because the training, training is always a big thing for everybody, but also just seeing that, people have eyes on, the program, saying, oh, well, I see this person's running this there. And, and then whenever I recruit, it's more of a, hey, this person came here. They weren't running this. They're
Right.
running these times.
Right.
This is where they're at, so, that's really what I do. I mean, recruiting wise, I try to do that, but
Yeah.
I know that just like once upon a time, I was doing the same thing where I was like, oh, D1, I want to go there.
Yeah.
A lot of kids do the same thing. And, like you was talking about the roster limits and all that coming on, and it's going to be big for a lot of.
Have you seen anything today? We're recording this in May of 2025. Have you seen anything today? Because I'm such a believer that all the best coaches are not in Power Four. And what I mean by that, they're great coaches. Again, I love and know all of those guys and gals, right? But what I'm saying is there are amazing coaches in D3, a vast majority. There are a lot of good coaches in D3, D2, NAIA, junior college. And so, like, I just, like, I don't think a kid is going to be harmed because they can't walk on or get book scholarship at Mississippi State or Alabama or Florida. They can still go to Emory-Riddle, Emory, LR. Like, there's great coaches at each one of those places. Have you seen today? Because they've done some roster cuts, even though we don't have a finalization on this whole House versus NCAA thing. There have been roster cuts. So the transfer portal is boom. People thought the transfer portal was big last year and the year before. I mean, it's just a big blimp. There's a ton of kids in there, right? Have you started seeing? I hate to call it the trickle down effect, but you know what I'm saying when I say that.
Yeah.
Have you started seeing, like, oh man,
I
we got
have.
a little bit better kids interested in us?
Yeah, I have. I mean, and then also whenever you look, I mean, like you said, it's May. Whenever you look at the top 10 list on TFRS. You look at it, you're like, wow, D2 was not like this 3 years ago, 4 years ago. And it's a thing from one, some of those kids that are at those Division 1s that are coming down to Division 2, or some of those D3 kids that are coming up, some of those NAI kids coming over to D2, but also it's from just the coaching, in D2, it's like you said, there's a bunch of great coaches in D2.
Yeah.
And it's
go look at nationals. That'll prove
yeah.
it right there. Yeah.
And it's one thing that, as a Division 2 coach, and I've been at, 2 schools where I've been actually on a staff, that I can say, I've had to say it a bunch of times to kids, like, you don't have to just go one place, because even some of those Division 1 schools and those coaches will tell you, hey, go here because you can get something from there, but also it doesn't suck. It's not like it sucks. I don't think there's a single division that you can say, oh, that sucks, so that's not good. I mean, shoot, I think it was last week, the D3 kid in long jump, 8-meter jump.
Yeah. Leads the nation, or at least at that point.
Yeah. He led the nation he led it for a week. I'll give him that. He led it for the week.
You know what I appreciate, what I'm hearing. So we've been having this conversation a lot on the podcast, right? Because it's it's kind of current events, if you will. What I don't hear you saying, and I appreciate you for this, like this just shows me more character and leadership and maybe optimism. I'm not hearing you say, yeah, you know what, Mike, it sucks. People are coming in getting our best kids, and it's happening all the time. We're basically just a junior college now at this point, blah, 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 blah. Because I've had some coaches remark that to me, and social media and things like that, and I'm like, well, that can't be true, because to your point about how good D2 is, go look at the national championship. It's better every year. And I see plenty of seniors on that group. There are plenty of kids that ran stupid fast as a sophomore, junior, that, air quotes here, could have transferred. Like a D1 school would have taken them no brainer. And they stayed at LR and other, in this case, D2 schools, what I'm saying, Grand Valleys, et cetera. So it's not happening all the time. I just think we like to, we like to talk about the negative a lot. And so when it does happen and a high profile kid leaves, it's always like, yeah, that's what happens. Those Power 4 schools, they just come and and it's like, no, that doesn't happen all the time. It happens, but it does not happen all the time. And you still have the ability, you can only control what you control. So you can, you can only control what's in front of you at LR. So I just appreciate your attitude of like, yeah, you know what, I'm continue recruiting and continue coaching, and chips will fall where they may, but we're going to be fast at those falling chips, if you will.
Yeah, and it's a thing that you got to kind of get with the times, kind of thing. It's the transfer portal's a thing now. So, like I said earlier, it wasn't a thing when I was when I was in school, and it's not like I'm super old. I'm 29, right? And transfer portal was not a thing then. If you wanted to transfer, it was a whole another process that you had to go through. But nowadays you can get in the transfer portal, but a lot of kids just they either stay at the school. Most kids will stay at school for their coach, or it's not rare, but it's more often than not that you'll see a kid stay at a school for their coaches, or it's not many times that you will see, oh yeah, I'm staying there for the school only.
It's still the minority that transfers, meaning it's not over 50% of kids are transferring. This is still a real minuscule, maybe not minuscule. I was gonna say maybe not this small, maybe now it's this big, but it's still not. Like I wish I actually knew the numbers. Like, is it 30%, 25%, 20%? Like, and I'm very, there's no one bigger pro coach than me, but I'm also very pro athlete in the sense of like, man, if they want to transfer, because there's a million reasons why they transfer. And not all of them are because it's a big name school. It could be closer to home. I need more financial aid. I don't know. It doesn't matter. I've had a bad experience at the school, not because of the school, because of their student body and things like that. So let them transfer. I just don't think you should be punished for that. That's my key where you are. If all your kids transfer out this year and it's like, well, we just went to last in conference, they're going to come to you like, well, Paris, what the heck? And it's like, well, bro, they all left. I can't control that. That's where you should. I don't feel like a coach should be punished for that aspect of it either.
Yeah, and I'm a big advocate. Like you said, I'm a pro athlete person. So if you're especially like depending on the reason behind it, hey coach, I want to leave for XYZ, this, that, or
Mhm.
third. Like I'm not gonna be upset at somebody for, wanting to do that.
Mhm.
Hey, you did your time at the school,
Yeah.
and this is the reasoning behind wanting to leave.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna push you out the door, but also I'm
Right.
not gonna
Right.
say, oh, you can't leave.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do
Yeah.
any of those things. So I'm
Yeah.
more so I wanna see people succeed. I
Yeah.
tell all my athletes that all the time. I tell
Yeah.
them when day one, hey, I want to see you succeed. I want to see you graduate from here in four
Right.
years, or
Right.
two, or one, whatever, whenever you
Yeah.
come in.
Yeah.
But if it's not, if here is not the place for you, right? I'm not going to sit there and say, you know,
That's funny, Pierce, because I think every coach, or at least 99.9%, if I said, hey, do you do it for the kids, would say, yeah, I do it for the kid. That's why I coach. I love helping young people, go through school and get better athletically and things like that. And then, a kid will say, well, I need to transfer. I want to transfer because I think that'll be a better situation for me. It's like, well, wait a minute. I poured so much into you. It's like, oh, well, I thought it was for the kids, coach. What?
yeah,
Like, no matter if you agree or disagree with their decision, you should be helping. Like, so I appreciate you
right,
living out that. Yeah, it's for the kids, man. Again, I'd rather you be here at LR and graduate here.
yeah,
But if this is not the right place, well, okay. Well, I'm not going to get in your way. Yeah, I appreciate that.
right.
That's good leadership. All right, Paris, take us out here in the last couple minutes as we wrap up. You've got we're still got outdoors in front of us. When we're recording this, it's literally next week. I'm already my plane ticket's booked. I'm ready, buddy. I know yours is too. I'm excited. I like Pueblo. I think it's a cool stadium that they have for nationals there. So I'm excited to go back there. But as you look long term, I know you still got to finish out the 25 season, but as you start looking at 26, 27, 30, 35, you start just kind of looking at the future. What's got you excited about LR, about your career? What's you're a positive dude. That's why I love you, but love about you. What's got you excited here in the near future?
Well, I mean, the recruiting class that we got coming in,
Nice. Yeah, good.
it's one that I'm very excited about.
Nice.
I'm very excited about it. But then also outside of just the recruiting class, just the people that we have coming back, right?
Cool.
A lot of growth this year. So even we got a bunch that have made nationals right now. They're going in that we just actually had a practice at noon today. And going from them to, when they come back next year, it's like I'm super excited for it. And
Nice.
then the pieces that we have coming in next year is only going to, help elevate where the program is.
That's cool.
Like I said, I mentioned Kevin Patterson. He started something special.
Yeah.
And I told him the one thing that if I do anything, I'm going to keep what he had going and try to elevate it just a
Yeah.
1% more,
That's right.
or let's try to do 10% more. But, I'm gonna try to elevate what he has done already.
Yeah.
Because he pretty much found that base. I'm just trying to, execute whatever that was and keep going forward. So
That's cool. Well, I'm excited for you, man. You're one of the people I really enjoy seeing and having conversations and just kind of, shooting the crap about what's going on and the track meet. And you guys just do a fantastic job there. You and all of D2. It's that's why I just keep beating the horn when people talk about these caps are going to limit opportunities. And I'm just like, that just, if you believe that,
mhm.
then you are putting down the mid majors of D1, D2, D3. Like you're saying, only these, what is it, 68 schools
Yeah.
have the right coaches. I mean, that's ludicrous, ludicrous.
Yeah.
Especially when you go look at the last Olympics. Many, many, many Olympians not from those schools.
Mhm.
Many Olympians from D2, D3, NAIA, junior college, etc. So I will just continue to defend and love on and advocate for coaches of all levels because there's some bangers. A lot of you guys and gals are just bangers. High school coaches, club coaches, just quite amazing what the level of coaching in America is for track and field right now. And you're a part of that pair. So I'm just so grateful, man. So grateful for your time today. I know it was a chill day, and so hopefully this didn't stress you out. You were cool, calm. You're like a cucumber, buddy. But I'm just really grateful for you and being here. Again, most expensive thing you can give me is your time. And like I said, you're going to nationals next week, so you're busy.
Oh yeah.
You're watching the internet, the TFers and everything. I get it. And so I'm just so grateful for you, man, and really appreciate you being here today.
No, I appreciate you, and thank you for having me on. Like you said before, I've been asking for this for a while. I've been asking for it for a while.
Yeah, well, I'm grateful for you, man, and we'll continue this train. There's a lot of people in your circle that are going to be on this podcast one day, but I think your story is super key, super unique, and I think people will gain something. Like there's something to learn from your story that's going to help someone that's listening right now, or this is evergreen, right? Someone's going to be listening to this in 2030 right now,
Mhm.
and they're going to gain something from this, and it's going to help them, and that's how legacy is built, and I think
Yeah,
that's what you're building, my friend.
absolutely.
Awesome, man. Well, Paris, thank you again for being here today. You guys and gals, thank you again so much. Again, it just humbles me. We talked about being humble earlier. It just humbles me that you continue to press play day after day now because it's a daily podcast. And so I'm just so grateful for you being here today. We're going to continue this train rolling. Please tune in tomorrow, Tuesday through Sunday. We do the Gill 1918 project. Please, please, please. This is by coaches for coaches. So hit me up to be on the Gill 1918 project. Your voice matters. We've had some just awesome 10-minute to 30-minute podcast on the Young 1918 project. And it's amazing. And it's going to really help you to continue honing your voice, honing your thoughts, your process of coaching and culture and recruiting and those kind of topics. Again, we're just creating the TED Talks of the track and field podcast world. And so I want you to be involved. So hit me up on DM, Twitter, email, text, smoke signals. If you know Paris, ask him. He's got my number, whatever. Just get a hold of me and let's work that out for you. So thanks again for being here. Join us next week and tomorrow, and we'll do it all over again. Thanks, guys.